Good evening, everybody. Welcome to round number 12 of this year's ASR Supercars Championship. Well, if you were thinking that you were looking forward to a 500 kilometre Pukekohe race or a 400 kilometre Pukekohe race, you better think again, because right there your graphic says it's a 200. And, well, you would be thinking right now, why? What's going on? Isn't this meant to be an enduro race? It was. There are a few changes that have happened in the last 30 minutes, and we'll get to those changes very, very shortly. But nonetheless, it is still a round of the Supercars Championship this year. It is still going to count for championship points, and it is still the penultimate round of this year's championship, and there's still plenty to play for. Now, welcome Benjamin Roddy Rhodes to the box for the second last time this year, who's got a beer in his hand apparently that smells like Vegemite right now. I don't know if he wants to explain that one live on air, but Roddy, you're watered and ready to go. I'm watered and ready to go, so let's go.
Yeah, water's a stretch. You don't really tend to go for beer for hydrational content. It's more just, there's definitely other uses you go for the alcohol for. But yeah, I am properly, or I will be socially lubricated in about half an hour's time. But no, it's, I'll say good evening to everyone first. And yeah, a bit of a different night planned tonight to what we had originally planned, and on a different night to what we originally planned it on. But yeah, what this does mean, a lot of things are still on the table. What this does mean tonight is, by virtue of the format that we will be presenting to you very soon, that the Enduro Cup this year has already wrapped up, although the cars still look like Enduro Cup cars, and that will be part of what we get into.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So in just a few seconds' time, once the cars finish going around there, we will divulge into what precisely has transpired in not only just the last half an hour, but probably the last couple of weeks as well. I'm sure there's several of you watching this back at some point that are a bit curious and following along and understand what the lay of the land was supposed to be calendar-wise, and what sort of cars were meant to be going around and when. We're about now to settle that argument for you and make it very, very clear. So originally at the start of the year, there was two sets of calendars that came out. There was the main calendar, which had all of the Supercars events. Of course, the three Endurance Cup rounds were part of the Supercars Championship, and then there was just the 3 rounds identifying where the 3 enduro races fell for those that were taking part in enduros only. So everybody knew what the lay of the land was. Sandown already happened, went according to plan. Bathurst happened, went according to plan. Pukekohe was scheduled for the beginning of the month, 4th and 5th of November. We ended up with quite a large contingent of drivers not being able to make that round. So in the interest of trying to get some numbers, the ASR admin team actually opted to, they took a poll and pushed the date back to this particular weekend, or Friday rather. That was the vote. And then a number of other people that actually didn't take part in the poll, which was quite disappointing, actually popped up and said that they couldn't make the round either, which sort of has spilled the numbers over and made it a bit less than optimal. So moving forward, what the decision was taken tonight was that we had enough cars we had 8 cars in the field. We've essentially gone close to doubling that number of cars by dropping this back to a solo driver event. There is one driver pairing that wanted to keep a car going just because they didn't want to run the event as a solo. So we end up with 15 cars. There will be a 15-minute qualifying session, a top 10 shootout for the cars that make the top 10, and then there will be a 70-lap race afterwards, which is just over 200 Ks. It's about 203, I think, if my math is right, and that will probably take us up to roughly about the same sort of time that we would normally finish a standard Supercars round on for most of the year anyway. So with a bit of luck, it'll still be a good spectacle, but Roddy, I think we all were in agreement that it was going to look a little bit average going into a race with only 8 cars going around on the screen, as qualifying's not too far from getting underway.
Absolutely. And to go quickly, like we talk about it from the spectacle point of view of how it looks to broadcast, how it looks for the league. But I think the more important thing, and the thing we're ultimately focused on, is the driver experience. And the smaller the grid gets, even if it's a really well competitive grid, like we've seen for Supercars this year over, 8 cars, there's just less options for people to have someone to race with. If you're the slow one, you're the slow one rather than slow 2, 3, or 4. If you're the fast one, you're the fast one rather than 2, 3, or 4. And that mid pack isn't maybe quite as big as it could be. And ultimately, you want to be out there and you want to be competing, not necessarily for first, but you want to be competitive. You want to be racing someone in some form, whether it's in a stint or whether it's a race-long strategy play where you're on an alternate strategy. So this gives people an open option, and there is ultimate, multiple strategies in play as well. There are some quick guys that, out there on pace. There are some guys just off that are going to be out there on some strategy. And then there is the one wild card, as it were, being the Lewis Wedding, John McDonald Fuchs HSB dealer team cars, the only one that actually has stayed intact through all this.
Yes.
Being that Lewis and John wanted to run this as an enduro and aren't in a position themselves to commit to a full True K race by themselves. They've got an interesting battle on their hands, but we know that the Pixel guys know their way around strategy, but they're going to end up with a longer pit stop somewhere else simply by virtue of the driver swap, which is, I think, about 20 seconds stop, which around here, 20 seconds is quite a bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if they pull. Also, important thing to note, because it's a solo event, there is no minimum co-driver laps. It essentially is, as long as we've seen someone in the car, it counts. They have to do a couple of racing laps, but it's not a 40-60 split like we've seen in the last two Enduro Cup rounds, or the two Enduro Cup rounds this year. So good chance of the safety car, we're going to see whoever starts the car out and then the driver in to finish the car. Something like that will happen.
Yeah, I think the rule that we've sort of put in place is for those two drivers that are participating as a pair, that we want to sort of see them do a reasonable stint. So, it's going to be a 70-lap race, so I think the number's been put down to say sort of circa 20 laps is probably deemed to be reasonable enough of a stint. It's exceptional circumstances, so the exceptions have sort of been made. Otherwise, it would be around a 40%. It would have been a 40% minimum co-driver distance, but that's all out the window now because the distance has been reduced, and we're now in qualifying trim. Turmo in the CRE Mustang getting a little bit out of control there off the exit of turn number 4. Now the bit to keep in mind here as well is these are not the regular livery cars, these are the Enduro Cup livery cars. There was plenty of them to go around, so there was already 2 CRE Mustangs in the mod. One of them was being driven by Devonish and Turmo, the other one being driven by Locke and Noah Tara. They've gone back to their original amped up racing cars. So I guess importantly from a team's championship point of view, you look at the CRE cars, there's 2 of them, there's 2 of the Pixel cars. There have been a couple of other changes in terms of the driver pairings and who's jumped into what car tonight as we get our first time on the board at a 3-3 from Turmo, and time starting to roll in overall. So we're going to do our best to sort of keep you in touch with who's driving what car across the night, because there are a few drivers in some cars you wouldn't typically see, and there are some of the drivers that did come through from the Super 2 and Super 3 ranks. We've actually done a fairly good job most of the year. Saw Daryl Callaghan a few moments ago. There he is. He's actually taken over the 915, which is the car that's normally been piloted by Daniel Cox and Cameron Rutledge, and neither of them here this weekend, but he's good mates with the two of them, with Cam at least, and fittingly enough has jumped into his car. So there are a couple of drivers we will just need to be aware that they have switched seats, because that was part of the merry-go-round that happened with Enduro Cup.
Yeah, so there are a few drivers that, even within the concept of Enduro Cup, have stayed within their teams. There are a few that, even before the change was thrown up, that had defectors, as it were, just to allow things to play out. So the key one is Brenton Foley, who's driving for the Pixel team tonight rather than for PBF. It's the first time he's driven for a team that isn't his own team in the 6 years he's been in Supercars. And it's actually the first, it's not the first actually, we're talking about it. It would have been the second time he's teamed up with Brendan Ross. Brendan Ross was a teammate with him for 2 years, and they ran in the Enduro Cup in 2020. But yeah, first time outside of PBF in a Supercars lineup for Brenton Foley. And there are, I think, a few others as well that are technically switching ranks, but that's really the big one. And a part of that for teams, and we're seeing this with both CRE and with Pixel, as ever, the important thing is that team's championship. So for Pixel, Foley's driving one of the 2 lead Pixel cars, not the Fuchs cars. And for CRE, same thing. Will and Turmo, or Curtis Igmanis, are in the 2 CRE Brent Engineering cars. So effectively, with the exception of Foley driving for Pixel rather than for PBF, it's essentially a regular Supercars round when it comes to the championship battle and the team's championship battle.
That's it. And that was the thing too. Brenton Foley had actually committed to driving the PBF car, sorry, the Pixel car tonight, because Luke Rosell is unable to drive that car with Brendan Ross. So that was a draftee in after Phil Boak, who's his regular teammate in Enduro Cup this year, unfortunately couldn't make it either. So as I said, part of the shuffling in the merry-go-round that is typically Enduro Cup, and he's done, I guess, it's probably the honourable thing, I think, Brody. He's committed to driving with that team, so he's stuck with the team and has continued on, and that's really pleasing to see. So a little bit of a change at the top, just in the last few seconds or so. We've been watching Will Devenish going around there. He did have the pole time all but briefly, and Redmond's the first to dip into the twos, so 1 minute 2.9. Did see a 2.5 from Noah Tara, I think it was, earlier in the practice session. That's when they were practicing as a driver pair. And here is Tara on cue at the hairpin at turn 8. There's nothing much between the top two at the moment, just 0.034 of a second separating the two on the provisional front row at the moment. There is, of course, the shootout to follow. Not even halfway through this session yet, Rody, so it's only a 15-minute session, but we've still got well over half the time to go. Plenty of laps already being pumped in, some drivers well up to 6 laps already. And Noah Tara, look at that for a time. We've got 3 drivers in the twos now. We've got Will Devenish has just gone back to the top, 102.885. Redmond at 2.919. Noah Tara at 2.981. So less than a tenth covering the top 3 at the moment.
Yeah, I had a point I was going to make there, but I completely lost it in the excitement of the new fastest times. But yeah, through practice, obviously a very truncated practice with everything that shook out, but Tim Redmond did pop up towards the end with a low 2. Will threatened to retaliate to that with a 1. That said, he hasn't actually done a 1 yet in the week or so of practice. He's got very close to a 1.
Tell you what, it's getting
his words, not mine.
Tell you what, it's getting close right now. Brapp's just done a 102.994, so he's put himself into that marker as well in the last few seconds. And then right behind him, Lockie Lock on a 3 dead. So there's a 1.15 of a second covers the top 5 now. So already actually, very close.
Yeah, Locks might be a match proof as well. He was purple through the second sector, so he's at a risk of taking the front row. Oh no, he's actually just fallen short, but not by much.
No, he hasn't. Yeah, he just look at the margin there. Just caught his lap a bit too late. 0.009 of a second. So second lap on the warm tyres for Lockie Lock really puts him up the order. Recently graduated from high school as well. So turned 18, got his licence, graduated from high school. So it's all coming up Millhouse for him at the moment. At the right time of the year. He's in Queensland, so he's right in the sweet spot for where schoolies is, but I don't know if he's actually going to end up at schoolies or not. I think he actually prefers to be doing the sim racing rather than going out and drinking yourself stupid.
I think so, yeah. I think with the position that CR, even the amped up cars have put themselves into this year, I think that will probably more likely be his focus. But yeah, he's in a good spot. He's only, I think he's only an hour or so's drive from the Gold Coast, but definitely country Queensland, so probably not quite his culture to head out to the Gold Coast and get blind drunk.
No, I don't think so. And keeping an eye on things here, Igmanis is about 0.3 of a second behind Brapp at the moment. Luke Speck's actually on the screen at the moment. He's not too far behind Igmanis, just a little under a tenth, or a little on a tenth, I should say, behind Igmanis in the CRE Mustang. No improvement there for Speck that time around. Locke's actually going, he's just done a personal best in Sector 1. And he's tracking now up towards turn number 5. Plenty of curb usage in there. We can throw the car in, pitch it in for turn number 6. It disagreed there, a little bit front locking. And now onto the hairpins. The second sector split comes up on the other side of the hairpin. And then it's a very short run down to the last few corners. And he's up. Look at that. Personal best in Sector 2 as well, and up on the current pole time, or provisional pole time, at the second split. Took a little bit of curb, bit too early there. That's fed him wide and kicked up a bit of the dust and the grass on the exit there, and it's cost him the time. So I just think there, Ruddy, he turned the car in probably a little bit earlier than he probably should have, just to try and get the bite, because it looked like he was tracking for the curb or for the inside part of the circuit a little bit too early. Lockton, yeah. Darren Lockton now. Sorry, Ruddy, he's just jumped up with a 3-1. So they're coming. Surprises are coming thick and fast at the moment.
Yeah, the irony of this one as well, being in the small fact being the car that he painted in. It wasn't planning on running. This was for Angus and Jesse Bennett to run. But as the pair of them, Angus and Jesse, have been referring to it, all Enduro Cup as the promotion car. Obviously, because the main sponsorship on the side is the play on the Penrite livery, but the promotion down the side. Darren's one of the two drivers most recently promoted from Super 3 to Super 2. And obviously there'll be a few coming in the off-season as well. But I don't know, maybe he's looking at risk of having to go a step further, because he's only 2/10 off the back of the current Super 2 points leader, who will be more than likely getting promotion to Supercars for next year. So I don't know, we might see, not that we haven't seen enough of, or not that we haven't seen the last of Darren yet in Supercars, but probably a few guest drivers might go his way next year if he doesn't look at a full-time or a part-time schedule.
Yeah, I think so. It's becoming, it's hard to ignore when you're doing times like that. I mean, they're not Hollywood times, but they are very, very good times nonetheless. And it's starting to get tight at the top. Like, where's the cutoff going to be? Oh, Wedding with a big moment off the circuit too at turn number 4. So he really overcooked it there through the turn 2-3 chicane. Where's the cutoff going to be, Rody?
That's a good point. I'm struggling. I'm not quite visualizing and easily in my head where the improvements are going to fall. How much quicker we're going to see some of these cars get. I do expect to see Ross going quicker. I expect to see Foley going quicker as well, actually.
They're the ones that are the big question marks at the moment, because Foley's outside the 10. Ross is just inside the 10, but then there's quite a large gap there between Ross and Wedding.
Yeah. And I keep in mind, as Lewis will come and watch this back, I'm not dunking on Lewis. Lewis can absolutely be a pace to the top 10 as well, but I think he knows there's a reason why he put two drivers that weren't him into his two lead team cars. But like Lewis, I'd expect to be poking up to the top 10 as well. There's probably, and to be fair, you catch here on a good day, or we catch Dostal on the pace that we saw. There's a lot of drivers that could make this top 10. It's going to be a case of where they find the time. Higo's got the most time to find it at the moment. And yeah, where that sector mark comes off to. I think, conservatively estimating, I reckon it's hard to tell improvements with a lap this short. I feel like if improvements are out there, that maybe Termo is the last non-safe driver at the moment.
Yeah, so where's he at the moment? He's 7th. He's on a 3.5. So yeah, he's at risk of being jumped here. And then if others behind him start to improve, then yeah, there's going to be a little bit of trouble there in the later stages of qualifying. Brapp was purple in the first sector on that last lap and just went through, but then just lost it in Sector 2 and Sector 3. He wasn't that far away from his own time, but just lost a little bit of time over as the lap expired. Brent Foley sideways coming onto the front straight. That's not going to help coming through the final corner. It's notorious in history. It's always been a notoriously bumpy section of the circuit. This is a new build from ASR, and it's sort of lost, from what the number of drivers have said, it's lost a little bit of that character. I'm not sure if that's something that'll be rectified in the off season, but it's presenting a different challenge for some of the drivers. They're sort of coming around the final corner and expecting those bumps to be there, but they're not quite the same as they were 12 months ago.
Yeah, it doesn't quite pitch the car around as much as the old track used to, but part of it, I think, for a lot of the drivers, and there will be a few guys in here, people the likes of Tim Redmond, I believe of Pete Throw, have actually driven this track in competition before, that will actually have an accurate gauge for how the track should feel. But a lot of it, I think, is just we've gotten so used to that the old Pukekohe, we run that for I think 4 or 5 years now, that it's just how Pukekohe drove, and it's just imprinted in our brain. So it's a bit of a throw. There is still bumps there, still with Lewis to throw it off. I think that was very wide. That's
very wide. Yeah, he got very, very egregious on the loud pedal there. He's got to sort of tone it back a little bit, I think. I'm wondering if he's looking at trying to run the same sort of setup that the Pixel guys have been running in their cars for the last several rounds, and sort of not coming to terms with the setup. I'm not 100% sure just yet. Redmond in the last few minutes as well, Rody. He's actually gone to the top. He's actually clear now by 0.2 of a second, so he's well and truly safe. 2.6 plays Noah Turris 2.8, and then Devonish is 2.8 as well. So it's actually 3 guys on a 2.8, because Locke's on a 2.8 as well, and then Brapp with a 2.9. So they're the only 5. Top 5 are in the 2s, and then the next couple are in the low to mid 3s. Wedding has improved, so he's improved a couple of tenths of a second, but he's still 0.3 shy of breaking into the top 10. Foley's on a personal best this time around. He'll get one more crack at it. That's much better through the final corner. Where does he move up to? Is he going to displace Wedding? He does. He moves up to displace Wedding, not by much, but by enough. And he's now little under 1/10 of a second outside the 10. So this is his last effort.
Yeah, the problem as things sit now, with the exception of Pete Thrower, who's not far in front of Brennan Ross, it really is a Pixel fighting against Pixel to be in the top 10. I think you're going to get one Pixel car in the top 10 unless we see drastic improvements. And yeah, at the moment that's Brennan Ross, but the gaps aren't really the gaps. Rossi's not safe at this point, and neither really is Pete Thrower.
No, definitely not. So these two on the screen at the moment, just there. So Foley was personal best in Sector 1. Devonish was actually purple in Sector 1. So he wants to be the last man out in the shootout. So Foley just ahead of him is actually giving Devonish quite a tow. Foley PB as well in still PB up to Sector 2. There's a yellow flag out here at the minute, but that'll just be for the car that's in the pit lane. Devonish has lost a little bit of time on this lap, but he's going to be safe. Foley's going to be out of the shootout. He's not going to make it with that. He is done. Oh, and a little bit, and some late contact there as well. So that's Foley out of control through the final corner, clouting the car of Will Devonish in the process.
So
Lock-end's up top. Lock-end's up top.
Oh, that was late.
That was late, and Redmond improved as well. So too did Devonish. So Devonish improved to a 2.5. Redmond improved to a 2.5, and Lock trumped them all with a 2.4.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing in it at the top.
Nothing in it at the top at the end of the day. Brapp stayed fifth. He didn't improve his time after the last couple of runs. Neither did Noah Turra. Then you got Darren Lockman ended up sixth there. He ended up with a 3.1 to Luke Speck's 3.2. So Speck improved as well. Igmanis, I think, can consider himself lucky. He ended up with a 3.5, and Wedding jumped into the 10. So Wedding jumped up with a 3.4, fractionally ahead of his teammate by, what's that, 0.013.
And then Pete Thrower out by 0.002.
Yeah, Thrower very, very unlucky to miss out on a top 10 shootout, by 0.002 of a second. That's an absolute shame there. Probably deserved to get in there. He was in the 10 for such a period of time that it just didn't come together for him in that one.
Yeah, and all it is, you can see on the timing point, 2,000 second, all it was, a slightly better gear change, a slightly better brake application, perhaps, a slightly better braking zone with a bit less locking. There was nothing in that. And it just unfortunately couldn't come together for him. But yeah, Pete Thrower out in 11th. Foley's just back from him in 12th. Obviously, we didn't see him improve. He was on a good run there, but didn't quite get to the line. Daryl Callahan in 13th, good run for him as a Super 3 regular season runner. Brandon Dostal in 14th with a bit of limited practice for Dostal, but we have seen good pace from him so far in the Enduro Cup, and Higginson at the back in 15th, but he's not too far off of Dostal, and we know Higginson's got the experience that the couple of cars in front of him do not have.
That's correct. That's precisely where I was going there as well. He's got that experience. There's only, it's Brandon Dostal's actually, this is technically his first solo round in a Supercars competition. He's raced a couple of ones here with the endurance part of the equation, but never has raced in a solo capacity. So there you go. So just a couple of brief moments here while we reset and we get ourselves ready to go to for the shootout. So we're just teeing that up at the moment, and we won't be too far away from that. Just waiting for things there. So your order there for the shootout is going to be, first man out will be Brendan Ross. So the two there'll be Pixel cars, and a Pixel car and a Fuchs car will be out first and second. So Ross first from Wedding, then Egmanis and Speck. Lochnan, Brapp, Noah Turra, Will Devonish, Tim Redmond, and Lockie Lock. Can't believe I'm saying Lockie Lock is going to be the last man out in the shootout, Roadie. That is a provisional poll for him, and he will be hoping that he can maintain exactly what he has just done over the 15 minutes of quali.
Absolutely, yeah. Like we've seen good pace out of both Locke and Turra this season, and I think they've been the drivers that have been threats for a win. Obviously, not picking up a win themselves, but no, it's been some really good pace out of the two amped up racing cars, and we can actually say that again tonight because they are both in amped up racing cars rather than sharing a CR engineering car. But yeah, it'll be interesting how it goes. Obviously, you've still got a shootout to run, and The interesting play here will be with the server reset, the grip will go back a little bit. So some drivers that were relying on the grip being where it was and with the rubber being put down where it was to set their times will have to work with a cleaner track, and some of those with a bit more experience perhaps will come up further up the front now. And as with anything with a shootout, there's that risk versus reward gamble that you play, and it depends on where you sit in the shootout as to how you play that one out. But yeah, sets himself up well so far. It's just got the shootout to go, and then we'll see how 200Ks treats him.
That's exactly right. So yeah, we're just rolling right around now and getting ourselves ready. And who do you think the favourite is here for pole, Rhodey? I mean, we've seen Lockie Lock go to provisional pole, but do you still think it's probably down to one of Tim and Will, or do you think Lockie can upset the big two?
It'd be interesting because, like, my default head math of how this sits is the two guys that I automatically pencil in first and second aren't here tonight. And to be fair, some of the guys that I would have penciled for being up there aren't here tonight as well. Like Zach Brown's obviously a notable out as well. As things sit, probably short price favourites are going to go towards the likes of the Will Devonish and the Tim Redmond. But I wouldn't put it past Noah or Locke, or perhaps even I think realistically that's probably the top four. So those guys, perhaps we could see improvement from Ross, but if he had the pace, he wouldn't have eked it just into the shootout. I think he would have, or into qualifying, he would have done what he could to put himself a bit further up the order to get the better track conditions. So I don't think we're seeing too much more out of the Pixel fellas. I really think, it's short price favourite for Tim or Will, but I wouldn't put it either of the amped up racing Mustangs out of commission either.
No, I don't think so either. Sorry, just had a little bit of a brief moment there to switch over to the shootout graphic. We actually weren't quite prepared in the last half an hour for all the changes that have happened in the lead up to this event. So just getting everything up and running correctly. So Brendan Ross, first man out in the shootout. And a big thank you to Brendan Foley as well, even though he's not going to be taking part in shootout. He is the patron saint of managing the shootout order of who goes out and when they go out in quali trim. Because you do have the first car out, and then when they start their lap, at some point the next car is released and they can go out and start their flying lap. So there's a little bit of logic to work through with it all. As Ross is coming through the last couple of corners. So let's go on board with Brendan Ross. Let's do a lap here of Pukekohe Park Raceway, which doesn't sadly exist in a racing capacity anymore, but it lives on in the virtual world. Into turn one, very, very high speed approach. Got to get the car tucked in nicely. Then you're straight on the brakes because you've got to smash the curb at 2, smash the curb at 3, and then you don't want to use all the outside at turn number between 3 and 4. You need to turn the car in pretty early. Use as much of the apron on the outside as you can. Maximise your straightaway speed. Up the back straight, which has that curve in it. Braking, not necessarily in a straight line, but you try to straighten it out as much as you can. Clip the inside curb at 5, left into 6. Use a little bit of the ripple strip, not too much. Turn 7, stay tight, and then just flow it out to the outside here. Bit of a snatched rear brake there from Ross as he pitches it in to the hairpin. Again, using as much of the road as you can. Move it back over to the right very, very quickly. Then it's 2 quick lefts. So there's a little quick one there, little quick one here. You need to use the curb bit here. And then it's just this patient thing up and over the rise, and use all the available road to you on the outside of turn 11. You get to the line, and if you're Brendan Ross, you've just done a 4.9. So for him, that is a little bit slower than what he did to get into the shooter. I think he was in the mid-4s, but nonetheless, he's got a lap on the board. Importantly, in a shootout, that's what counts, because you never know what happens next.
Absolutely, yeah, and slightly scrappy run there for Rossi, but yeah, exactly. So time on the board, that's what matters. And as I said, part of it is just adjusting to the slight lack of grip, and some of it's some drivers that perhaps do better with that couple of run warm-up rather than getting straight into it. But still a good run there for Ross. Probably a few clean moments he could have picked up there where it didn't quite work out right. But this track is... it's a simple track in theory, but a lot of the challenge in this track is that almost none of the braking zones are purely straight, leveled, untilted braking zones. Either you're actively turning or you've just come off a corner. The weight transfer is still on one side of the car over the other, and it makes it a real challenge to get the brakes set up nicely. now we've got his teammate Lewis Wedding setting up for a run out of the last corner.
Yep, certainly is. And around the last corner he comes and onto the front straight. Got a little bit of dust kicked up there, and we keep saying that you don't want to be doing that too often because you do hurt your straightaway speed coming down towards turn number 1. Takes away your terminal velocity. Oh, back got away from him. Back got away from him there as well. He's off the road. He's in the fence, unfortunately, for Wedding, and that's going to be him done.
Yeah, I could see that fairly early. He was well wide of the apex at 1, and you don't really want to try and get to an apex as such at 1. But you really want to set it up. I've just had it confirmed from Ross. I suspect this is for his lap rather than Lewis's. But Ross is confirmed he had full fuel in his car.
Oh dear.
So that would explain his time as well. But yeah, for Wedding, he was actually really just off put at the exit of the final corner. He had a massive swapper go on mid-apex of the final corner, which swapped him out into the grass, and then just completely missed the line through 1. It's easy to do, and you're fighting understeer through 1 the entire way through on a good lap, and then just couldn't get himself set up nicely for that flip-flop through 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was it.
Unfortunately, he was chasing it. That was the problem. Is the minute the car got away from him at the top of the hill, coming down the front straight, he was already in the grass. That got his attention, and probably took his attention away from what needed to happen. Got through turn 1 okay, and then just slightly overcooked the braking zone at turn 2. Back got away from him, and then counter-steered. Then got to turn number 3, tried to go the other way, counter-steered the opposite way, and made the fence. So, fortunately for Wedding, that will consign him at this stage to the rear of the top 10. So the worst he can start now is 10th.
Yeah, he's just confirmed he didn't have any setup from qualifying, which would definitely play into your mental state as well. Heading out now, though, is Koenigsegg Manus, who will be the first of the CRE cars out in the shootout.
Turning it from a wide point of view as well, coming into turn number 1. That's actually not a bad tactic because it allows you to square the car off a little bit nicer for the braking zone at 2 before you pitch the car to the left. Oh, had a bit of a wobble and an oversteer moment there as well. All kinds of steer for Egmanus going through turn number 4. Lucky to get away with that one. Was that costly though? He's, better part of 0.2 of a second up on the time from Brendan Ross, but did that hurt the straightaway speed down towards turn number 5? Looks very tidy through 5 and 6.
Yeah, he was able to get to the throttle a lot, I suppose a lot smoother than Ross, and Ross was carrying a good 90 kilos extra weight, so that will affect how smoothly you can get at the throttle without losing time and bogging down. But yeah, you can see it just through there. Just a much cleaner, much smoother run, able to get to the throttle the way he wanted to. And it's picked up another 8/10, even if the run off of turn 4 was not the best. And he's running people a little bit more here as well. Much cleaner up over the top of the hill through the last couple of corners. And 1.5 second improvement to a 3.404.
That's actually a really good time for Termo because that's roughly about what he did to get into the shootout in the first place. I think he was a 3.3, I think, if memory serves me correctly, or a 3.4, one of those 2 times. So he's roughly about where he was when he, in terms of time-wise, getting into the shootout. So that's a good number. That if you can match your shootout, so your qualifying time in the shootout, you've done well.
Absolutely, that was a really good job setting himself up, and look, the important thing is the safety number, and a few things to go, because there's a few wild cards to come up next, and the first one of those is Luke Speck.
Here he goes. Curb cam at turn 11, good view, uses all the road, doesn't put a tyre out there in the grass like a couple of drivers before him have done. Now pitching it into 1. Car washes a little bit wide, so you've got to wrench the steering wheel a little bit harder, locks the inside front there, lucky not to go off the road, gathered it up. That will be costly though, because now he's missed the apex at 4 for the ideal line, and getting to the timing beacon here, and timing wise he is down. So unfortunately that was a little bit costly. It did mean that he ran a little bit too wide through the first chicane and then couldn't get it back online for turn 4 and apply the power when he wanted to.
Yeah, let's say he did a very good job of getting the car back under control there. It's a very tricky spot through there, even when you're actually on the ideal racing line. He's brought it up pretty well through that second sector there. Nice run out of that hairpin. He's lost a little bit of time, but not much, only about a 1/10 to what Egmanus was doing. And Egmanus was pretty well on the money. Egmanus has got years of experience in supercars. For Luke Speck, I think he's only had a couple of wildcard appearances before this. And his run is going to put him into
3.8.
second, 4/10 off, but still in a good spot with a few of the drivers yet to come up.
Yep, Not bad time there, 3.8, so that little mistake, just a little bit costly, and he actually didn't lose too much time in the third sector, which is only a fairly short sector anyway, but when it got to about 4.5 tenths, he didn't lose anything more after that. So job well done. Currently provisional P2 for what is currently the PBF 074. So Foley probably be watching that car with interest because that is his usual ride. And now we turn our attention to Darren Lockman.
Yeah, so another one of the guys coming up out of Super 2 now for Darren, as you mentioned earlier, in the promotion car, and car he painted, so it's actually good to see he gets a run in his own car. And he was the surprise packet of qualifying for sure. That too, yeah, he did. He ended up where he was qualified in 6th, obviously, which means he's now the 4th one out in the shootout. Good run through the first sector there, very tidy. Smooth, a little bit of a wobble out of turn 4, but not as severe as we saw for the other cars, and he's right on the money with Termo, and to be on the money with somebody who's fighting up at the top of the championship, somebody who's in Super 2, that's pretty good running. Well, this is where Termo absolutely smashed it through the middle sector, so not as much curb there for Lockton. He's just keeping it smooth, just keeping the lap time in there, so not a bad approach, and just seeing if it'll pay dividends, but we'll get the real telltale marker will be on the other side of this corner here. A little bit of inside front locking, couple of puffs of smoke from the front right. What's the clock say? It's actually not that bad. I thought it was going to be a little bit worse than that. So 3.5 tenths behind the current provisional pole time is a pretty good time, and it will insert him in between Egmanis and Speck at the current point in time. And we get to the line, and it is indeed there. He actually, I apologise. He lost some time. It swung the other way. Which makes sense. I mean, his run through 1 was about equivalent to Termo, not far off. Specs run through to Sector 2 was about equivalent to Termo. So it makes sense. They're running there or thereabouts. They're 4 tenths back from Termo's pace, but they're pretty line ball each other, which about what you expect, because that's about where they've been running the couple of times they've been on track together in the Dev Series. His Sector 1 time was actually very, very spot on the money. Like, it was beautifully driven. It was very, very smooth and looked very much in control. And I thought, well, it would be on for a good lap here if he keeps it, in check this way. It didn't look too gaudy, but it just dropped away from him in that third sector. He must have just had a really poor exit out of the hairpin and not really committed too hard to the last couple of corners because the time just slipped away a little bit. As we turn our attention to the 45 of Brap and PBF. Is this the PBF Academy car, is it, Rody? No, this is the second race engineering car. This is the fill-in, as it were, for Zach Brown in the regular championship. Check out the time. It is literally almost the same time that Lockman produced in Sector 1 on his quick lap. The only thing is the number at the end of the line was a bit different. Brap's too deep into turn number 5, though. That upsets him for 6. That's going to be very costly. Heading down into turn number 8, I expect to see a sea of red on the bottom of the timing screen on the other side of this, because he was well off the apex, and there it is. Look at that. He's tracking now like he's going to be somewhere between Speck and Lockman, but it's got to get this last sector under control. Wide of the apex as well at the final corner. That's going to burn more time for the 45, and he slips behind Lockman. That's a turnout. Yeah, it was the run into 5 that was really throwing it up for me. That was, I think, the narrowest I've seen someone try and run like the turn 5. Well, turn 5 as we treat it is the 90-degree right-hander, but technically, if you want to count the way the Americans do, the kink in the back straight is turn 5, and you don't hit the apex there because it's not a corner. But Brap basically tried to straighten out that corner to apply a long braking zone. But what it meant was he was pointing completely the opposite direction to more than 90 degrees off the apex by the time he had to turn in, and that really threw him off. I haven't seen a lot of his driving outside of that to know whether that was his usual style, but if it wasn't, it was a bit bold, but it just didn't work out. Problem was, Rody, that's the dirty side of the road. That too, yeah. That is the dirty side of the road, and when you shorten up that, it's a good tactic to shorten up the corner. Shortest distance around the circuit is always paramount, but you've got to be aware when you do something like that, that there are consequences to pay if you change and deviate from your natural line. And then there were 4 left in the shootout, and Noah Turra, only 0.2 of a second to the clear on top of Egmanis' time at the moment. But as we said, Egmanis absolutely smashed through the middle sector. So Turra's done something similar, narrowed up the approach, but he didn't go as far to the right
as Brapp just did a few moments ago. So he was pretty close to the normal racing line, pulled it up nicely, made the apex at 5, comfortably through at 6. Some right front locking seems to be a problem for a lot of drivers now at turn number 8 because it's feeding them all wide.
Yeah,
only gained a little bit.
Yeah, amazingly he's still good through there. But yeah, that run through 5 was a lot better. I think that was more what Brapp was perhaps aiming to do, but really good run now out of the corner. A lot of drivers catching a slide as they come through that final corner, but Noah's probably one of the more controlled runs and the first one to go ahead of Temo.
So improved in all sectors. He purpled all sectors despite the little off and a little moment at turn number 8. He managed to gather it up, so got a good exit, must have committed really, really hard to the last couple of corners to make the lap time work for him there.
Alrighty, so we have, I realized in my head I was thinking we got 4 left, but no we don't,
No.
because Lewis Wedding had in 8 times. So we are down now to the final 3, and the first one of those is the current,
Yes.
Current Drivers' Championship leader. I was thinking of the teams. Current Drivers' Championship leader in Will Devonish.
Certainly is atop the point standings there. He could probably put it beyond doubt tonight, I think, as well, Rhodey, with still a round to go. With Luke Rosella not here to hold up there at the PBF end of the fort. It's down to Redmond and to Brendan Ross to see if they can arrest any of the momentum. We'll have a look at the point standings while we're in the warm-up session and drivers are sorting some things out, but we'll for the moment we'll focus on the lap. Little puff of smoke there on the change of direction out of 3 heading into 4. Really skates the car hard through turn number 4. Comes up with a 1/10.5 to the good on the current pole time of Noah Turra. So this would be tracking into the high 2s if you can keep this together. Doesn't use as much curb at turn number 5, and that actually kept him a little bit further to the left than ideally he would have liked to have been. He would have liked to have turned it in for 6 from a little bit more of a wider angle to keep the speed up.
Absolutely, yeah. That said, all things considered, that was a pretty good run. A little bit of improvement there as well. Picked up the 210, so seems to be something the CRE fellas have sorted out as the last set come through here. I'll get to that comment in a second, Rossi. Yeah, good run out of the final corner, and he has gone
2.6
to pole, and he's improved a little bit further. So yeah, 2.6.
Yep. So that is the current quickest benchmark, and not the fastest time we've seen tonight, but it definitely is a marker that will be difficult to beat. As we head over to Tim Redmond. Home race for Beyond Electrical this round as well. Been a great sponsor for us this year, so big thank you to Peter Thrower and the team from Beyond Electrical. And hopefully Redmond can do them proud for Beyond Racing heading down into the last couple of corners. Taking the wide approach into turn 11. That's an interesting tactic. Try and maximise the straightaway speed coming onto the front straight. A couple of extra Ks might do the trick. You won't be able to do that on your proper flying shootout lap, but you can do that on the start of the lap. Try and take every little bit of advantage that you can get.
Yeah, that was I didn't have much to me west to throw that. That was a very full commitment run. He's up by just under a 1/10, but when you're dealing with a minute lap time, there's only so many places you can pick up time. And you're right. I think that run down the onto the straight helped to set him up quite nicely. I think he was the earliest driver I've seen so far to get up to 6th gear down the main straight. Good run through the chicane there. He's actually kept it right to the inside to open up the run into the hairpin.
Used all the road too at the hairpin as well. One of the very few drivers we've actually seen do that, use the entire part of the real estate of the road. He's lost a touch of time, but he's still up. This is a very, very important lap for Tim Redmond. He can't use the wide line this time. He's got to use the normal line because you would have lost too much time there. Gets the grass though. Is that going to be the invoice that he has to pay potentially for provisional pole? And it's faded for him at the last minute. Provisional front row.
Yeah, the giveaway was, he was that far off. It wasn't even a lift. He had to actually jump on the brakes coming through the last corner, and yeah, you could see it just early. That's the problem everyone is having is there's a lack of grip. There's some grip you've got to give up somewhere through that last corner, and for most drivers, it's been oversteer. For those that have really seem to get the car balance worked out, it's understeer, which driver dependent, but as I see it personally, understeer is the worst of the two. It's the only one you can't actively drive out of. And that's a shame for him. He's still front row as things sit currently, we've still got Lockie Lock to go and a lot of pressure on this kid now.
Yeah, absolute ton of pressure on the driver here, using all the road as much as he possibly could, but that's actually cost him a lot of time there because he went well wider than he should have.
Yeah, so that was already a slightly scrappy start to the lap with 2/10 off of, or nearly call it a second off of Will Devonish. He could get it back up, but he's going to have a perfect run through the next two sectors to do it.
Yeah, so nicely, neatly through 5, again through 6, using all the available road here. With a 2/10 of a second margin, that's what he was at Sector 1. It's going to slot him into provisional 3rd. It's gone the other way. It's still sinking the wrong way, so if he needs to keep this going, he needs to fix it up pretty quickly here. Otherwise, he's at risk of falling behind his stablemate, Noah Turra. What's the clock say? I doubt it's going to be pole. It's going to be P3 for Lockie Lock. And yeah, you're right, not by much at all after that one was all said and done. So your provisional pole sitter that was at the end of qualifying, unfortunately for him, will finish 3rd. And the pole will be taken by Will Devonish for, I have to do the math in a minute, Rody. I have got it sitting somewhere. Actually, it's on the points graphic. We'll do that in just a few moments' time. But for Will Devonish, he will, I think he'll move on to possibly 10 poles for the season. It might be the pole award secured for 2023.
I would say so at this point. Yeah, I'll have to check the stats, but I think, yeah, with where he started in the season and obviously missing out tonight and a couple other instances, yeah, I think he might have taken that out of reach of Luke Rosella.
Yeah, well, Luke actually had a good, Will had a good stranglehold on the pole positions for most of the year anyway. And then Luke appeared at the event for, I think it was the Bend was the first time we saw him. And then he himself went on a good string of pole position runs. Termo had a couple of pole positions in there as well. And then there was also the joint pole positions that were shared too. So it was Devonish and Egmanis that took the pole at the Sandown 400 round because that was classed as a joint pole. They were both awarded a pole position award. At Bathurst, it went the other way. It went to Rosella and to Brendan Ross as a joint pole position there too. So a few little things to factor in. We'll have a look at the graphic in just a few seconds' time. We're going to advance the session on to the warm-up session because there'll be a few drivers that just need to get their eye in for a couple of things, and then we're ready to go. Well, in the interim, Rody, while we're waiting for the grid to be set and for everybody to sort themselves out, let's actually have a little bit of we'll have a look at a couple of things here. So let's first and foremost, let's start with the drivers' points. So there you can see it. There it was there. So Will Devonish was actually on 8 pole positions for the season. That moves his total to 9, and that is now well and truly out of reach of Luke Rosella with only one qualifying session to come for Adelaide. So the pole position award will be secured for the year. And then with the point standings as they sit right there, you can see Will's got quite a handy margin at the top of the standings. It's very close to 500 points, so he only needs to be 300 in front by the time the race is over tonight, and he will be crowned the 2023 ASR Supercars champion with a round to go, which in years gone by has been unheard of. If that's the case, it normally goes down to the final round of the season. But then look, there's still a lot to play out in the mid-pack there. Everybody from Tim Redmond right on down to Luke Rosella, who's unfortunately not here tonight. There is still a lot to play out there.
Yeah, the big change from that order that's seen at the moment is the first one of that order that will drop off as a result of tonight's tonight's outcome is Luke Rosella. Also, we're going to see Daniel Cox drop down. We'll see Phil Boak. We'll see Zach Brown drop down as well. Leonard Grossel is probably I think it's the next page where you're sitting. I'm looking at the master sheet.
Yeah,
but,
top 10.
A few other guys. Yeah, so top 10. So the important ones in the top 10 is Rosella, Cox, and Boak. We'll see drop down. It wasn't really ever Rosella's year for the championship. He was here more to try and set the Pixel guys up for a team's title. But Will, if he performs well tonight, he basically puts the championship into a position where there's no doubt in it at all. but he's going to survive tonight to do that first. It's by no means a guaranteed. If he has a shocker like he had at, like the team car had at Sandown, it's still definitely an open possibility for the drivers behind to get him. But realistically, I think it's only Ross and maybe Redmond with a really stellar result tonight and a stellar result at Adelaide that has a chance of getting in there mathematically.
Well, it's only 600 points on the table.
Sorry, 600 points. So yeah, sorry, you're saying corrected. It is just Ross. So yeah, at this point, Ross and his aspirations for his own performance tonight aren't strong. But if he has a decent result tonight and something happens to Will, he's an outside favourite, but he's mathematically still in it.
Yes, that's the important thing. At the moment, we just keep saying everything's mathematically in it, but the bit to think about as well is there is still the drop round, which has not been played into any of the points here just yet. That is the one factor that we've been forgetting about all year, Rhodey, that it's still got to come into play. And you're looking at the sheet there. I'm not looking at it right now, but I mean, at the worst right now, I believe Brendan Ross actually has a 0-point round in there, I think, at some point, or he has a very poor round, so he's only going to drop a handful of points. He's not going to drop a lot, where I think Devonish is actually, I think he's attended every round, so he might actually have actually, he's also got a 0-point round to drop too. I apologise, because the DNF at the Sandown 400 actually does count. So that would be considered his drop round. So effectively, yeah, if that's the case, then he would effectively be crowned the champion, because his drop round will be 0, which means the points that he is currently on right now is the final points that he will be on, plus tonight, plus next round at Adelaide.
Yeah, the way it's playing out, Ross has finished every race he started this year, and he started every race that we've had this year. So he is going to lose some points in a drop. It won't be enough, I think. Oh, actually, the interesting thing actually for him will be that would potentially put him into range of Tim Redmond.
Yes.
Because Redmond's only 200 points behind. And I think after a couple of like 14s, 15s, 13s that he's been in the top 10 most of this year. So he's going to lose a healthy chunk of points somewhere, probably from one of these 15, when he's outside 10th place rounds at something like if one of them falls, that I haven't got it fully ahead of me right now, but if it was like a 2-race round or something, that'll probably be where his drop will come. But the way Tim's been going and the way Ross is going tonight, I don't think even second's guaranteed just yet.
No, well, actually, Rossi's just jumped in the chat here as well, so he's just confirmed, Will Devonish will drop 0 because he had the Sandown 400, where Ross is going to drop around about 120 points. But for Tim Redmond behind him, he's also got a 0-point round in there as well. So
yeah, because he missed out. Oh, he missed out, I think, at the start of the season, but he also
he did.
For us, he missed out Simmons playing. So yeah, he's definitely a drop of 0.
Yeah, and that actually is interesting from Tim Redmond's point of view, because that actually means the amount of points he's actually amassed this year has been pretty good, considering he's missed a couple of rounds with the foot trouble and the wheel trouble and a bunch of other things as well. So that's actually a really good return for Redmond, despite having those couple of rounds that he's missed. As we go over the page, let's have a look at positions 11 through to 20. So there's definitely a few on here you mentioned are going to move up tonight. So Nathan Higginson is in the field. He'll move up a couple of spots. Rutledge and Co will probably sink down a little bit. Wedding will move up. Zach Brown's going to move down. So yeah, there's definitely a few moves and shakes that are going to happen in the drivers' point standings there. The main focus, though, has been on the team's points, because that's where everything has swung around in the last couple of rounds. And there it is there on the graphic there, Rhodey. It's about 250 points between first and second.
Yeah, and it's, as I mentioned at the start of the night, it's why, with the change to a solid overnight, why the team is shaken out the way they have. It's why, perhaps more logically, but it's why Termo's in the second of the series race engineering cars. It's why Brenton Foley, who was going to share with Brendan Ross, is in the second of the lead Pixel cars, the real Pixel Holden Racing Team cars. It's all to do with the team's points game. That's been Pixel's focus. It's been a CRE stranglehold since I think 2020. Has been the team's point standings. We had championship winners since then that are outside those teams, but those teams' entries have more or less all been single car entries, so they've never had a chance to fight for teams. CRE have always been there for teams, and this is the year that CRE are looking at getting their driver's title, but they're very much at risk of losing their stranglehold on the team title as a result. And yeah, that's been the push. That's been probably the more competitive race this season, has been the team's championship, and how it can be manufactured is not the word for it, but how best results can be attained in that standing.
Yeah, that's right. Very tight there also between Amped Up Racing by CRE and Beyond Racing, so the other two Mustang teams that are Sorry, I actually got that the wrong way around because the Beyond Racing team's actually meant to have a blue graphic, not a red one. And same with PBF Race Engineering, that's the opposite way too. There's a couple of things there that graphics designer needs to be sacked, unfortunately. They've got a few things wrong there. But yes, nonetheless, very, very tight still between 3 and 4. Don't count PBF Race Engineering with no one racing for them this weekend. They're going to be in a bit of trouble.
No, there are 2 cars that have PBF today with
yes, there is
Brap
actually
and Spec.
2.
So there is actually, so they're actually a potential of moving around as well. So yeah, it's interesting the way it's actually panned out. All top 6. I think all top 6. I actually need to check if I don't think there's 2 cars. No, there isn't 2 Fuchs HSP cars. No. So all the top 6 teams have got both cars here tonight.
Yes, they've got represented in both cars.
Yes. So they are potential to get points, different points on the table for different cars. But yeah, there's still potential for teams' points. The interesting one obviously is the top 2 fight. Realistically, the way things are sitting right now, I do not for a second doubt Brap or Spec, but compared to the might we've seen out of Locke and Tara for pace all season, I think they're going to start to pull away a little bit. It'll be a case of then if PBF with Zach Brown and Brendan Foley back in Adelaide, perhaps swing that back in some form. But I think realistically they're going to start to pull away. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong one there. Sorry. Lamped Up with Beyond is the fight we're looking at. Sorry.
Yes, correct.
That one will be interesting to see how that plays out because we know Tim's pace. So it'll really just be down to how Pete performs, and Pete's been very much there or thereabouts a lot of this year. So very much sort of looking on the back end of a top 10 for a lot of it. So top 10. Sorry, what I meant was a podium. So look, that's still very much an open case as well.
Yeah, definitely is an open case. And I think we were talking to all the drivers in the chat about half an hour before qualifying when we made the decision around running as a solo driver event, and everybody got to have their vote. And Pete turned out, when he came to his turn to say what he wanted to do, and he said, Tim's a liability, so I want to race it as a solo. Well, Tim's up the top end of the qualifying table, and Pete unfortunately missed the shootout. So I think he's probably regretting his choice of words in that particular instance. This will come back to haunt you, Pete.
Possibly. I think maybe Pete's call, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out because, and I don't know if Tim's listening in the 3 minutes or so we've got, a minute or so we got till we race, he can perhaps confirm. But last we talked to Tim, he was still having his foot troubles. He was still having a basically single foot drive at Bathurst. So if he's still in that position, it is a shorter race. It is a shorter stint, I think, that he would have otherwise perhaps had to look at doing, but not by much, granted. But if he's still single foot driving, it might not be an issue in the first half of the race, but towards the back end, we might see a small fade, or we might see a concerted effort to put himself way up the front so that he can then park the bus at the back end of it.
Yes, that's correct. Just getting a little bit of wording through as well. That looks like we have actually lost one car. Looks like Brandon Dostal may have, unfortunately, had some sort of a drama and is not able to race. So he was in qualifying. He missed the shootout. So from his point of view, he was outside the 10. I think he was classified possibly 15th or 14th.
I think he was 13th or 14th. It was him and Callahan that were fighting over those 2 spots. I know it was Higginson right at the back.
Yep.
So yeah, it'd be shame to see if he can't make it, because that does go back on what I said not 2 minutes ago, that all 6 teams of the top 6 had representatives, because he was driving the number 21 car that him and Ben Hall been sharing for the Enduros. He was in that car tonight, so that would have given CRE Anson some teams points.
Yes, certainly would have. All right, here we go. It feels like an eternity since we last commentated one of these races. When did we last commentate the Supercars round? It would have been in October for the Bathurst 500. So it feels like an eternity since we've actually been in a booth together and called one of these races. But so I apologise to all the people that subscribed here to our broadcasting, those that have been looking forward to the regular stream of racing that we've sort of had roughly every 3 to 4 weeks over the last couple of years now. It has been an unexpected gap in proceedings, certainly not intentional. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that turned out to be trying to do the right thing by the league and by the group, and everybody unfortunately wasn't wasn't quite available to make it work the way things always are planned out. So fortunately, we have a race. We have 200 kilometres of racing ahead, 70 laps on the board, and a grid of cars just lining up at the moment, just waiting on Lewis Wedding. And he's got a couple of seconds, and he's on the grid now, and we're good to go. And as is customary, Rhodey, the floor is yours.
Alrighty, so starting from pole for the ASR Pukekohe 200 and a little bit is Will Devonish for CRE Engineering. He's in the number 151 that him and Curtis Sigmanis have been sharing for the Enduro Cup. Starting alongside him is Tim Redmond in the number 43. This is Tim Redmond's regular season number, not with the Hunikiwi livery, of course, with the Pink Beyond Racing livery that he was sharing with Pete Thrower. Third is Lockie Lock. It's the furthest up we've seen the Paint Doctor Mustang in the Enduro Cup by quite a bit. Not that Dan McDonald and Darryl Callahan, the regular drivers, have been putting in good pace with it, but good to see that car up towards the front. Hopefully they'll get a few more sponsors for next year. Fourth is Noah Turra driving the car that was set aside for Aidan Williams and Anthony Green. Anthony Green obviously over at Adelaide this weekend with his employment at Tickford, so Noah Turra is in that car instead. Fifth is Dakota Sigmatis, aka Tomo, driving the car that Noah Turra would be in, so there's a bit of a swap there in the order, but familiarly in the blue CRE Engineering car, similar to his regular season livery. Sixth is Luke Speck. He's driving the Winfield-based Red Bull PBF Engineering car that Foley and Phil both ran at, I think it was Bathurst, no, sorry, Sandown, for the Enduro Cup, and Darryl Callahan in seventh in skill issue car. This would have been Angus Brown and Jesse Bennett in it, but instead it's Darren Loughlin. Eighth is Bratt in his regular car that he would have been sharing with Luke Speck, the number 45 PBF Engineering Commodore. Ninth is Brendan Ross in the first of the throwbacks to the Kmart liveries that the Pixel guys are running today. 10th is Lewis Wedding. He will be sharing with John McDonald as the window banner shows, so we'll see John later in the race. 11th is Pete Thrower in the car that was set aside for Stancliffe and Kelly. 12th is Foley in the Brunswick and Burke number 88. 13th is Darryl Callahan in the Rutledge and Cox number 915, and 14th is Nathan Higginson in his car, but not sharing with Bailey Hall.
Thank you, Rhodey. Not too far away, just looking, there's a couple of drivers, I think, at the back here, just sort of getting themselves into orders, one or two that's slightly out of sequence. Hopefully we're not too far away from the race start here, and someone can, whoever's not in position, there we go. We are in position. Pukekohe 200. 70 laps for race 27 of the ASR Supercars Championship is underway. Will Devonish with a poor start from the front row of the grid. That shoots Redmond into the lead, and Igmanis down the inside of both of the amped up racing Mustangs gets himself up into third place ahead of Callahan and ahead of Locke and Turra. So that was an interesting start there for Igmanis, who was buried in the field. A little bit of push and shove a bit further at the back. Looks like Foley might have been getting his ears boxed in coming out of turn number 4, because he had two wheels in the grass leaving turn number 4. Up the inside comes Brendan Ross, and Foley's actually fighting with his own car. That's going to be something that he's probably not accustomed to seeing. Technically he's fighting with his own car. Livery-wise, that is, and now finally consolidates 8th place. So he's actually come from outside the top 10 and has now moved into the top 10 on the opening lap. Going backwards there is Darren Loughlin into 11th place right now. Yeah,
they just a quick talk went through at the start. That was the most speedway turn I've seen out of a supercar in a race ever. Tomo, he was still on the grass and packed sideways the entire run through the corner, but managed to make it work, and obviously he's moving his way up now, further up the grid. But yeah, it's a very clean start, good to see, and yeah, it's a bit of a shake-up for these guys racing cars that they've either used to seeing themselves in, or cars that they're, cars that they're not used to racing.
Good start for Wedding as well, up 3 spots, didn't set a lap in the shootout, ended up in the turn 4 fence, and he's found 3 spots here as a couple of drivers have sunk back through the field. A little bit of a shake-up inside the top couple spots or so. Callahan started off the back, so him and Higginson haven't made too much process, but the big movers at the moment, Speck down about 4 or 5 spots, Loughlin down about 4 or 5 spots, Foley and Wedding up about 2 to 3 each.
Yeah, they've got the happy little They're happy little Pixel train, which sort of goes back to their speedway running. That's really where they Pixel like to bring out their happy, yeah, well, they're happy little performance trains. Well, like they perform better as they perform better when they're in a unit. They seem to run fairly well. I say that, and Foley and Ross both exploring the grass. I think Foley in the make contact with the wall on the outside there.
One explored it more than the other, Rhodey. I think that's one was an exploring and one was an adventure. Out of those two at turn number 4. The reason I said happy is I was going to go down the avenue of you end up saying you had a beer that smelled like Vegemite. I was about to break out the happy little Vegemite thing, but I don't think that the Pixel crew are going to be happy little Vegemites until the end of this race in about an hour and a bit's time.
Yeah, I've also to quickly finish off that beer anecdote. After half an hour of trying to open it without spraying everywhere, I finally got it open. Darren Lognan, a few cars actually shortcutting the chicane, so a few guys missing the brakes there. Lognan and Higginson and Thrower all shortcutting the chicane.
Yep, there they are. They're all feeding back on there at turn number 8. So that is the rule. They do have to go through the tyre barriers. So let's have a look here. They just overshoot the braking zone. So in behind Spec. Oh, there was some contact there actually, and then Thrower got spooked, and through they all go. So you can see there, I think it looks like, yep, there you go. That's actually a smart call. Actually, good call there for Darren Loughnane. Not only giving up the spot after the contact, but also giving up plenty of time there as well to the guys that were directly behind. So Loughnane with the contact with Spec. Thrower got spooked, and then I think Higginson, I don't know what happened to him. He probably just went off the race.
More than likely, yeah. You can get a bit of target fixation on a car you're racing trying to follow, and very, very much, I've done it more for a few occasions where the guy in front goes off and you're that fixated on trying to catch him and follow him that you do exactly that and you follow him off the track.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here. Curtis McManus says, oh, there was a late dive there from Locke. He's just completely misjudged it. Actually, I was about to say I thought there must have been like a timing glitch or something because McManus was showing in 14th place and I was wondering what had happened. That's actually now been corrected by the live timing. He definitely didn't have a problem. It was the timing glitch there for the circuit. So he still stays in 3rd place.
Yeah, he hasn't been having a problem, but what I have noticed in the couple of flicks I've done through, and obviously Locke was trying to do something about that in the little send that he made that put him off the track, and is now currently up behind Brap. What this has meant is that Igmanis had a really good start, but he hasn't quite had the car pace, at least early on, of the 2 CRE cars behind him, that being the paint doctor car of Lockie Locke, still departing just not far off a lap ago, and Noah Tara is currently harassing all over the back of the car that he would normally be in. But yeah, they've both had seemingly slightly better pace than Chomo. I don't know, maybe Chomo, thinking bigger picture, trying to perhaps in the short time they've had to work out stints that worked out that, I don't know, a bit of saving here, a bit of saving there, gets them into a window, or how quite that plays out. But maybe it's just a raw pace factor that he's maybe not quite got the 1 lap pace that Noah Tara and Lockie Locke have been sitting on, but it has meant that he's kind of been the cork in the bottle a little bit, and has allowed Will Devon and Tim Redmond to start to escape off the front. Yeah,
that's right. So Redmond, there's actually it's a bit of a movement on the front straight. I was just having a look. There's a scattering of the parting of the Red Seas, I was going to say, rather. There's a few drivers coming red on the front straight now. There goes Callahan and Co. There was, I think it was Luke Speck was facing the fence. No, it was Brap, sorry. Brap facing the fence. Very, very unusual for him. And he has had a few little dramas this year, and they've not been of his own volition. There's a few issues he had in the Super 2 race at Darwin earlier in the year. What happened here? Did he just get outside on the thing? Yeah, twitch. And, actually lucky not to make heavier contact than what he had. Probably could, I was about to say, probably could have jammed the anchors on there, Brap, and let the cars go around because he rolled sort of back into traffic. Some great evasive action there by the Pixel duo and by Peter Thrower.
Yeah, it was almost all good both ways. He rolled back a bit further than I think he meant to, and the Pixel guys had to duck into the grass, and he responded to that, went, oh, hang on, I'm in the way here. So he moved forward just as Pete was trying to go the other way around him. So Pete had to try and squeeze through there's definitely a gap there, but at the speed he's going, it doesn't feel like it's any more than a car width. So they've got through mostly on Peter for speed. Obviously, the Pixel cars out in the grass didn't help them, but they've since got back through on Pete Thrower. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately for Raps, put him off the back, but he's still in range of the train. He's not every single lap down just yet, but he's definitely, if he's planning on pitting at some point soon, he's at risk now.
Yeah, that's right. Now, importantly, that was to Lewis Wedding's benefit as well. So Raps' little misfortune was beneficial to Wedding, so he actually moved up into P6 as a result of that. So that's another spot for him in the order so far. Keeping in mind, he's got to hand over John McDonald at some point too. So we'll wait to see when that happens, if they split it down the middle, or how they want to run their stints, if they want to just swap and change every time they need to do a pit stop. There's nothing wrong with that as well, as long as they put in a reasonable amount of laps each. That's all that's it's being asked of them at the moment. So first 7 laps have gone fairly quickly. Oh, off the road. It looks like Wedding might gain another spot here because Locke's been off the road. That's the second time he's been off the road in the opening 8 laps of the race. That one was a mistake all on his own. He wasn't actually going for a pass or anything. He was just all running solo. Wedding is now all over him.
Yeah, that was easy enough to do, just trying to catch up to the back of the 2 cars in front of him. And yeah, just threw it a little bit wide. It's easy enough to do, as I mentioned in the shootout, the run through 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're very much almost. I've used the phrase before with a couple of sections on track. It's almost even when you're doing it properly, it's almost like you're falling down a staircase. So there's even when it's going well, it's a bit of a handful. And when it's all it takes, as we saw with Wedding in the shootout, you just get a little bit wide at one corner, it throws off the entire run. So he's done a good job to get
he's wide there as well. And he's it nearly did what Brack did, and this time he pancakes the pit wall fence. So the highs of highs of being provisionally the fastest person in the shootout to falling down the order like falling downstairs wearing leg calipers. If you're the one who were talking about falling down a staircase, Rody.
Yeah. But look, early days, I think perhaps maybe just like one thing we didn't actually really think about in the planning for this from a broadcast point of view is where tyre wear falls into, because we weren't thinking sort of single driver sprint race strategy, but really what this has turned into is one of our longer single driver events. I mean, it is now a solo event, but it's turned into one of our long single driver races, and Locke's a little bit wide here at turn 6 as well. I'm not sure if he was in the pit menus or just got a little bit flustered for something, but he's dropped to the back of the pixel train now in 9th.
Yeah, he has. So yeah, there's also been a bit of a change in that pixel train as well. I was just noticing as well. So Foley's still at the head of the queue, but Peter Thrower's now moved up ahead of Brendan Ross. Yeah, I think that might be just a strategy play from Brendan Ross to sit back behind the 2 quicker cars and just save a little bit of fuel. The problem for Brendan Ross is when Foley goes wide, he ends up sort of almost following in sympathy, and it also checks the whole entire train up. So rather than punching a nice hole in the air for Brendan Ross is having to just get out of the throttle a touch every now and again just to stay in check there. He's just gone a little bit wide there, a little bit of overcorrection as well coming through the last couple of the first couple of corners, and Thrower has taken advantage of Foley's off the road misfortunes, moving through into position number 6.
Yeah, so it's a good little train at work here, and we saw some differences there coming out of turn 4. Throws run a lot smoother through the corner, so a lot better sort of average speed through the corner. I think it was that Higginson having a little wobble in the background. But yeah, a good run through the corner for Thrower, but actually the better run, even the slight adventure for Foley, actually a better run off the corner, was catching down the back, so a bit of slipstream will help with that as well, of course. But interesting how to see how this is playing out, because there's 2 guys in this train, although it's actually become a 2-car train now with Ross dropping off the back just slightly, that are in communication with each other, so they can plan things around. And Pete's effectively he's got the mufflers on, where he's got the blinders on, as it were. He's very much running his own race. He's not really worried about what the 2 around him are doing, even if they're trying to orchestrate something that will work better for the 3 of them. So it's very much sort of almost putting the faith in the guy in front that, he'll race in a way that benefits the train, because they're probably trying to work together a little bit, either for fuel saving or just to try and make some headway on the cars in front.
Yeah, that's right. So Thrower's running his own race at the moment. He's actually running pretty consistently at the minute. His best lap's a 3.8. His last lap around was a 4.1. So he's actually just in a rhythm at the moment, not doing anything too untoward, not asking too much of the car. He's actually driving the car fairly straight, fairly smoothly. And I think Foley's quite happily just sitting there quite contently at the moment. And they're going to play the team game. I reckon at some point they'll pull the trigger, and we'll start to find out what's going on. It's Ross is just having a further moments back in the field. He was actually well up on the, got hung up on the outside curb at the hairpin, so that was quite nasty for him. Have a look at this one again on the replay, actually. That for him, it was very, very strange. Asked a little bit of the car through one of the corners here, and coming up to turn number 8. Just watch this, Rody. So turns it in, actually had locked inside front, so that'll be the reason why it's spewed in wide. It's been a common occurrence. You see there, he got hung up on the outside curb. Common occurrence so far tonight, locking into turn 8.
Yeah, and it's as I mentioned, there's very few straight braking zones on this track, and this one into turn 8 is, like on the face of it, oh yeah, straight braking zone, but the speed of a supercar means you're braking before your car is fully straight, before the weight balance is fully settled. And normally it throws you off a little bit. Normally the weight is already tending towards the outside of the car by virtue of the very slight right-hander, but the speed you're doing, you're still throwing weight around. Yeah, the weight tends to bounce out a little out to the right, then you jump on the brakes, and a lot of the weight down to the left front, which helps give you the grip to get you turned in. But then you end up bringing a little bit of weight off the right-hand side, particularly off the right front, and then that used locking it. It's not the fastest braking zone on the track. That's reserved for the chicane before it. But it's still, you're still carrying a lot of speed through there.
Oh, Higginson having to shortcut the chicane for the second time. It looks like he was actually had a spin down there as well. So he's had a little bit of a moment, and he was on his own too. So he's currently running 14th and last. Now the bit that I'd said to Higo before the night was, just go out there and enjoy yourself, but he won't have enjoyed that. He actually locked the car down completely. Probably not a lot of damage on the front of the car there, but locked the car down completely, and I think probably just overshot the braking zone, compression locked it, didn't flip the down change, all of the above, and off he went.
Yeah, like Higo's got the pace to be able to run with the likes of Brap, of Darryl Callahan, of Logden, of Speck, of that sort of group up in front of him. Right now, he's either relying on a safety car or perhaps something that brings strategy back in his favour somewhere along the line. But yeah, he's definitely got the pace. It's part of it, and I think it's I'm not singling out Higo for any driver, is just to get out of your own head sometimes and just race what's in front of you. He's sprayed it a little bit deep and had to shortcut the chicane again there. But yeah, a lot of it is sometimes, as much as you can sit there and plan and think your way through your driving, sometimes you just sit in the car and feel how the car feels and drive what you get given.
Yes, that's exactly right. You just got to respond to what the car is asking you to do. You don't try and tell the car what to do if it doesn't want to do it. So, I was watching the real life Supercars broadcast today at various points in time during work, Rody, and one of the things that I took out of it, someone said about Shane Van Gisbergen, is his feel for the car is incredible.
Yes.
Right? And that's precisely what we're on about here. You know, when it comes to talking about what Higginson was just doing a few moments ago. You don't want, you've got to be able to feel what the car's doing, and you've got to know how to respond when the car gives you a certain message or a certain cue. You have to say, right, if my car is on the slide, I instinctively need to know that I need to counter steer, or I need to, accelerate, or I need to do, whatever. And it depends on the kind of car you're driving. So in a front-wheel drive car, if you start to, to feel the rear end go a little bit, you need to counter steer and put the foot down and go for it, because the car will claw up and go. But if you're doing that in a supercar, which is a rear-wheel drive car, that's the worst thing you want to do, is counter steer and put your foot down, because potentially it's just going to make the situation worse. It's those sorts of things that the car, when the car says something, you need to feel what it's doing, you need to understand what it's doing, and know how to respond.
Yeah, a couple of changes while we were out there having our little. Doesn't matter. Anyway, not that what I was saying doesn't matter. I was trying to come up with a way of summarising it. Anyway, a couple of things that we've missed.
Before you go too far, there's a bit of door handle to door handle action here. Battle for the lead, as Redmond had a little bit of half look up the inside at turn number 1, and Devonish gave him plenty of space, and they got through. This gap out in front has not been any more than about half a second since Devonish took the lead back at about lap 3, and they're now coming up to the back of Higginson. And a little bit of compression locking there. I think Devonish saw him coming as well, left him a bit of room. So that's good heads-up driving. Yellow flag, that'll be for Higginson, who's probably gone through the runoff again. Yes, he has. And rejoins the circuit. So Yeah, you could sort of cut that at the wrong time, Rody, because we were just having a quick. You were
that
about
was
to
one
say
of the things
something.
I was trying
Yes.
to. That was one of the things I was trying to conjure. The other thing as well that we missed on all that as well is that Noah Tara, who was whilst we saw him up the back of Curtis Igmanis, giving him a bit of a hurry up. He's also had a small wobble somewhere. It would have been probably a couple of laps ago at this point. But what that's meant is that Lewis Wedding's able to process through very cleanly. Not only that, Lewis Wedding's actually now catching Curtis Igmanis for third.
Not only that, I think Noah Tara's being caught by Brendan Foley, who's now back ahead of Peter Thrower, right behind him at the moment. Yeah, there it is. So number 88 has gone through. Oh, Thrower with a big slide off the final corner. Actually looked like he was about to overtake Foley. He was going so quick over the top of the hill sideways. But yeah, these two I think are starting to catch the back of Tara as well. Yeah, there's Higginson on the outside the circuit too, parked up, yellow flag situation. I'm wondering whether that car is going to be retired. No, he's just waiting.
I saw it moving. I think he's just waiting to waiting to clear it through. Yeah. But he is in a position that if a safety car does fall and it does fall long enough, he will be given that lap back anyway. Yes. But he's very much trying to keep out of the way now. That said, he's getting himself involved because Ross is trying to finish him off down the back straight. Yeah, well, Higginson, I just saw it pulled over to the side of the track, and he was trying to get out of the way of all the cars that were coming up behind him. But every other car that arrives on the scene wants to use the advantage as much as they possibly can. And for Ross, he's trying to pinch that slipstream. He's actually gone through. She's got Lockie Lock behind him now, who's, I guess, trying to recover after a very, very ordinary start. Yellow flags again. And Higginson just shortcutting the chicane.
Yeah, can we have a yellow flag, Cameron, please? That part of the track. First stopper, Lewis Wedding. Here we go. Okay, so this is a very, very timely moment here as Wedding comes into the pits. To bring up our Daniel Cox Designs race facts. So there it is. That's what when I was looking at the practice times a bit earlier in the last couple of weeks, that was the fuel burn rate, 3.4 to 3.7 a lap. So when you sort of factor that in on a tank that is, 112 litres, I think, Rody, is what the capacity of these cars are.
Yes. Yep.
So there we go. So let's just grab our old calculator here. We'll plug 112 in and divide that by the top figure. It actually gets you to 30 laps. So that's an interesting sort of facet there. So maybe they're going for a sprint type of a mentality here. Lewis Wedding has actually stayed in the car. The big important part of the equation there on your graphic is the hard tyre. That is the big killer. That's what I think is probably starting to bring a few people undone in the middle part of the stint, is the hard tyre and its properties.
Yeah, I think what this is allowing people to do is they can absolutely go and get a fresh set of hards, which I think I did to the car on Jack, so I think that's what they've gone and done there.
Yeah, they did.
They will have put some fuel in the tank as well, and mention of what was it? I think you said, was it 40 laps? So
30. 30 was the number based on what I'd seen. Okay. I mean, I could be wrong, but there's actually a lot going on now.
Yeah, what they've done now is put themselves into a sub 2 stop window. Sub 2 stint window, sorry.
Yeah, they could be working backwards from the actual number.
Yeah, so they'll be working back. So what this gives them is a little bit of wiggle room potentially as to where a safety car might fall to perhaps best get McDonald into the car. But it's very much now they're in the situation they can push. And everyone's in the situation they can push. It just, they're going to have to take a half stint somewhere. And Pixel have decided to get theirs out the way early.
Yeah, that's right. There's actually some reacting going on there as well. I've seen Brendan Ross has come into the lane. Noah Tara's come into the lane. And so too is Nathan Higginson, but he's actually retired the car. So I don't think it was quite working out for him the way that he thought it was going to go tonight. So that's one car out after inside the first 20 laps. Passing chance here as well. So Callahan being passed by Brapp down the inside at the hairpin, and they two of them press on. So for the moment, with the way the situation is out in front, the 3 cars that have stopped so far officially have gone a lap down. Now that is unfortunately the risk that happens at a short track like Pukekohe, because it's such a long pit lane at a pedestrian 40 k's an hour. You do go a lap down. It's the same as like places like Simmons Plains and short tracks like that. You pay the penalty if you come in under a green flag, and then you just got to hope to God when you come out onto the track in such a spot where you can actually cycle around and get your lap back. Lockie Lock now in the lane. So again, a few drivers just, I guess, doing the math and starting to work back from the ideal point.
Yeah, I think what we're going to start to see now is there will be sort of two camps. There'll be those that have taken their short stop now, and those who have taken the short stop a little bit later. What that will mean for us is the distinction of the race lead may or may not. Well, that said, I think the race lead still at this point on pace is between Devonish and Redmond. But that said, like Lewis was on a good little charge there. It depends on how much John McDonald reckon he's sitting on. I mean, he has thrown himself around ASR previously as one of the quickest backpacks out there. So that doesn't exactly suggest a lot of confidence in his own pace. But John's not too slow. He's been fairly capable in the Dev Series. We have seen a few guys that have been there or thereabouts in Dev Series. They've actually turned it on really nicely in Enduro Cup. We saw this with Dostal in the at Sandown, especially. He was running quite a lot higher than we thought we'd see him. So potentially a window still for that car to perform well. That pit stop really is going to be what throws it out for them. But if the strategy plays into it, I think Pixel are a possibility because they've pitted where they have for a reason. Very much they've split the strategy. Foley's kept going, so Foley's running up with Pete Thrower, and they're currently, I think, trying to make moves to get up towards Kosigmanis if possible. But Ross and the McDonald wedding car have taken their short stop now, so they perhaps see something different in the strategy, or perhaps are doing a contra strategy for a reason, just to see how that plays out.
Yeah. You're about to say they're trying to catch up to Igmanis, but Igmanis got quite a march on them at the moment. Foley and Peter Thrower were catching Noah Turra for a good period of time, and Foley's actually caught Turra and passed him. Turra's actually trying to repass him now down into 5 and gets that move done quite cleanly. So in terms of the team's points battle, actually Noah Turra's doing doing Devonish and Igmanis quite a service here at the moment by keeping Foley at bay in the early going of his first stint.
Yeah, this is just the balance that plays out where we've seen this at Pukekohe's gone past. More so, the distinction is all easy to see when you're on a soft tyre, but even on a hard tyre, 20 lap used hard versus fresh hard is a slight pace difference. Also, we saw this in just the difference in qualifying. Turra was quicker around here in a one-lap situation than Foley, so it makes sense that he'd be able to unlap himself and pull back past these guys, especially with the pressure that the boots on. But yeah, he's very much trying to get himself back in the picture. I mean, his next car to chase for on-track position, so that's sort of sub-battle. He's second in that sub-battle. Lewis Wedding is the next car ahead, and that's about a 15-second gap.
Yeah. Now, Daryl Callahan's been into the lane as well, so everyone on your timing graphic there from Lewis Wedding down to Daryl Callahan has been in for a stop as Foley runs quite deep at turn number 5, and Thrower not quite close enough to have a little nibble going into 5, but not doing anything too silly at the moment. Thrower, as we talked earlier, he's just quite happy to sit back there and keep going and keep the points rolling in for Beyond Electrical and Beyond Racing. Yeah, looking at what the numbers were, about 30 laps was probably the maximum they probably want to get any sort of driver to in a stint, but keeping in mind we also had the formation lap as well, so it's going to be probably a number in the high 20s unless you've been able to save a lot of fuel. And you called it quite early too, Brody, with Foley going with a different strategy. Brendan Ross is a bit further back in the pack. He's actually not that much further behind Foley on track, but of course it is a lap down. That's the important piece of that equation. What happens if safety car comes out now, Rody? What's the situation there is Lucky Dog goes to Lewis Wedding.
Lucky Dog would go to Lewis Wedding, but I think realistically, if a safety car were to come out, those haven't pitted would probably go right. This is my short stint. That's right,
and then the others would have to go back around at a flying pace and get their lap back, and then they would have to come in for a stop, and probably at the back end, they'd probably have to pit immediately because they would be off sequence to everybody else as a Thrower arrives in the lane at speed. Does he get it stopped before the line? He does.
I think he was pretty close, but there isn't enough margin to work with that he would have gotten away with that. It was like only a couple of Ks over. But yeah, I was about to mention that. So I think some drivers, it's now the gambling of, and that's the thing, technically things say it's only one short stint, but realistically, if you've got to pit twice, you don't have to run two 30 lap stints in this race. You could run 2 25s and a 30. You could run 3 that's somewhere under 30 as a combo across all 3. And I like with where we're seeing Pete pitting, he's pitting in lap 24, so he could be in the next to lap 49, lap 50, and he's running 2 25 lap stints and a 20 lap stint.
Devonish has actually been in the lane, I think, as well too. A little bit because he's silver on my graphic. Yes, he's actually coming in now.
Oh, he's coming in now. Yeah.
So he's coming. So he's gone to 25 laps. So he's actually looks like he might be dividing this into thirds. 25, 50, and say 75. But you're splitting it up at a nice sort of even sort of a clip, and hedging your bets that way. That's not a bad way to go. Those that are running a bit longer are sort of buying some flexibility into it, as you're talking about. So you do your 30 lap stint, you could potentially do, a 25 and a 15 or a 20 and a 20, and split it up whatever way you sort of like it.
Yeah, so what it looks like now is we've got Tim Redmond will probably be in the next lap to respond to that. Luke Speck's also through the lane, as is Brendan Foley. Brendan Foley pitting out of 4th as things currently sit, but obviously it'll be shuffled order. So more or less as things go, there'll be one or two drivers, I'll say. It is just Turbo. I believe Brap has, actually no, Brap hasn't been through the lane yet. So Brap's one of the, Brap and Lognan, I think. Oh, so Lognan's pitting now. So yeah, so Tim at the front, although he should be in sometime soon. And then, Igmanis and Brap are the other two that still need to pit for their first stop.
Yeah, that's right. So Igmanis is going again. Redmond is in the lane right now, and Brap is yet to stop as well. But he's also had a spin and a couple of other items as well. So he's going probably as far as he can before he wants to stop, just in case you get that inevitable safety car. He's not going to do himself any favours going that wide of the apex there. So Igmanis now goes to the lead of the race. So that's the third lead change of this race inside the first half an hour. So Redmond led away from the start, led a couple of laps. Devonish has led the bulk of them. Now Devonish's teammates got a couple more. Here comes Brap, so that will mean one more driver to that. Oh, yeah, what an arrival that was! And I
don't think he'll be safe.
I somehow don't think he's going to be safe either, Rody.
I think I can see he's very much trying to cheese the average back down. Maybe that'll save him, but I think they cross the line at something in the region of 60 or 70 k's an hour there. Yeah,
that was an arrival and a half for Brap. So we'll find out very shortly if he's gonna cop the old pit lane speeding penalty for that one. Igmanis now wins. So race leader is in, so that will cleanse the field. So we'll get an idea in the next few minutes of how that shakes out. And it was Devonish who was leading the race when all pit stop sequences have started. Actually, but Wedding has gone. Wedding has moved up here according to what the timing screen says. So,
and no, that's accurate. He's ahead of Devonish on track. So, yes, that's how the strategy play. It's fallen into Wedding's hands. Yes. I'm not quite sure where. Maybe it's a shorter, perhaps. Short fuel. It's a shorter. Yeah, probably shorter fuel. Probably. Well, I have to be shorter fuel then. I would think it has to be shorter. Probably just enough to cover the tyres. Yeah, but yeah.
And that's smart because it's now going to play into, from a strategy point of view, as the Fuchs dealer team's sister team to the real Holden Pixel Racing team. He's going to probably play a little bit of a thorn in the side here, I think, to try and help from the team's point of view.
Possibly. I think it might just be the simple base thing that, there would be a bit of pride being the only, especially with the inherent penalty they've got with having to pull a driver stop off. Driver swap, sorry. Not even on the basis of does that work or not, just on the basis of the time penalty that's added to a pit stop by virtue of doing it. If they manage to, and there we go for Brap. If Wedding and McDonald manage to win, or to be fair, even finish on the podium of this race, I think, considering where they started from, considering that they've got a 20-second handicap over every other car in the field. That'd be pretty good doing, and there'd be a bit of pride, I think, for them in, look, we stuck to our guns, we still ran this as a two-driver enduro, and we managed to come out on top against all the single-driver cars.
That's right. And for Lewis Wedding's point of view, yes, it is a pride sort of a situation for them at the moment. But he has been known to be the strategy master on a number of occasions, especially in the GT3 years. I remember, was it a Road America round at one stage where we all thought he'd gone too early, or he got the pit strategy mucked up from a broadcast point of view, and then he absolutely brained him in the final stint and came out on top. And just by smart strategy, and then just being able to put his head down and drive the car and drive it really, really well. Now, there's a lap traffic situation that's going to happen here as well. Wedding's not going to probably be able to hold Devonish up for too long. The margin between Devonish and Redmond is elongated through the pit stop sequence as well. And now the defensive act is well and truly on for Wedding. Skates it in on the rears. Devonish now tries to go to the outside, the high line here. And Wedding's going to have to leave him a little bit of room, and he's got to give it up now, I'd imagine, because Devonish is right down the inside at 7. And they're going to be a little bit of door handle bagging, just not too much there. But Wedding was vulnerable from the minute he skated it into 5.
Yeah, it's not as if it's not as if there isn't like a pace difference between these two drivers, but I'd almost suggest the way that car's behaving, I feel like maybe the time saving wasn't in fuel, maybe the time saving was not swapping tires, because it I did say I swear I saw the car go up on jacks, but the way this car is moving around compared to the car in front, either or he's had a setup reset, it just doesn't look perhaps as happy as it was looking in the first end, and the way it's squirming around, either it's a setup reset or it's tyres that aren't green.
I was about to say, well, did they only go for rears or something?
They might, yeah, potentially. Either I know that if they had the option to, they probably would have just done the outside set the way that the tyres were around Pukekohe, but we haven't actually got that currently set up for the Supercars series. But perhaps maybe going, or the way it's struggling off corner, perhaps maybe even just the fronts. But yeah, I don't know. I imagine we'll find out at the end of the race. But yeah, the way this car's behaving, it's either had a setup change, or they don't have a completely fresh car under them. Would be my guess.
I think you might be right there. Bit of a gaggle going on here. So Brendan Ross and Brent Foley ganging up on who's that there? They're ganging up on Lockie Lock for 6th place at the moment. So 6th, 7th, and 8th in your shot at the moment here. And then Igmanis has he's had a bit of a shocker since his pit stop. He's fallen right behind these guys as up the inside in the 88 comes Brent Foley. He gets that move done, and he'll be on the inside now for the last corner, which is the one you really want to be on, and wisely for Lock gives him plenty of room there. Coming onto the front straight. Fastest part of the circuit here, well, fastest corner on the circuit, I should say, turn number 1. Nice high speed approach. Square the car off, and he's missed the apex there, so 2 quite badly. Foley pinched a brake ahead of him, he's wide of the apex at 4. And then now the shoot up the back straight here, getting up to about 260, 270 k's an hour by the time you get to the braking zone for turn number 5, which will break about the 150 because it's a curved braking zone. You've really not got much of an opportunity to fully square the car up, so you can't smash the brake pedal down. You've got to give it the initial load, and then you sort of got to bleed the brake pedal a little bit just to prevent the front wheels from locking and sending you straight on at 5.
Yeah, the other challenge here they're now finding as their little train continues on is they're starting to want to buy into the picture. Actually, they've managed to drop Ross and Tyler. I think Ross he's not quite fighting Igmanis, but Igmanis is definitely present in his life right now. Actually, Ross had a massive, I think, tank slapper off the last corner because he's lost a bucket of time to Igmanis, who's about to go past the inside of 1.
Yep, here he comes, up the inside, and Ross will still be on the inside for 2 here, will he? So, yeah, Igmanis was just ahead and left a bit of room there just to be on the safe side. A little bit of a wobble mid-corner as they flash through the stationary camera at turn 4, and that might be it for Brendan Ross, I think. Now this is a team's battle that we've been sort of talking about over the last sort of several rounds, Rhodey. The CRE and Real Holden Pixel Racing Team battle, because it had flipped around the other way with Rosella being drafted in. It had flipped around the other way, but Ross had been the one sort of doing the really, really good job behind Rosella and Devonish to keep that team's points ticking over and keep them catching. Whereas Igmanis had a few, let's just say, awkward rounds. Bathurst 500 at least went according to plan for them. There was the big points failure for CRE as a whole at Sandown, where quite a number of the cars didn't finish. So that set them on the back foot. But even before Sandown 400, where Ross would finish, sort of 4th, 5th, 6th place, whatever it was, Igmanis was like, sort of 8th or 9th. Had a few sort of troubles that couldn't quite keep the points ticking over at the same rate, and as a consequence, the points for the teams just sort of got whittled away and whittled away and whittled away over time.
Yeah, I like the way things were set up at the start of the season. They're a little better balanced because Ross was not quite as quick as Devonish or Redmond, but he was able to be there or thereabouts. He had maybe had a bit more, obviously a bit more attendance as it turns out than we saw from Tim, but also just a bit more, I suppose, reliability of pace. He had a couple of, as I mentioned, a couple of shockers outside the top 10, but otherwise pretty stable in the top 10 all season, which is what he's currently sitting second in the points tally. And then you had the inverse equation at the other end where Termo was just ahead of Lewis on pace. There would have been some times where Lewis would pull a strategy call and then be able to park the bus at the back end of the race and set himself up quite well. And times where Termo's raw pace would just get him into a good position, he could go from there. But the way things were playing out, there was just a slight edging away for CRE, and this was obviously, of course, when everything was going well with both teams. There were a couple of times there that we saw a bit of a falter from Pixel, which was why the points lead started to get a little bit unattainable as the season wore on. And it's why ultimately Wedding was fired from his own team and Luke Rosella was hired in his place. Obviously that was a big switch because they went from having a driver, as Tomo goes to the over-under on his teammate in Lockie Lock. They went from a position where they had a driver that was able to win a race, so Pixel had win the position of drivers that could be, top 3, top 5, and a driver that could make top 10, to a driver that could make top 3, top 5. Contact between the teammates.
There's some contact on the front straight, so what happened there? So Igmanis, we're just keeping an eye on Brendan Ross there for the moment. So Igmanis has had a moment on the front straight. And time for a look at the old Outlaw Broadcasting replay there. So this is, I wouldn't say it's teammates, it's intra-teammates because they're two different camps. Oh, this is I've already got conniptions about this race. This is not going to end well. Around the final couple of corners, over and under treatment, is it for Igmanis? Oh, that's of his own doing. That's a really awkward one there too, because he sort of made some contact with the rear of Locke's car. Locke's car just didn't react, and I think because Igmanis had the steering wheel on, it made it look worse than probably it actually was. Maybe put that one down to an AMS probably. Yeah,
like it speaks to, I was saying that speaks to what we've encountered before, and a lot of times this season we've looked at things and we've gone, well, if this were the 100% accurate physics, and we're not talking about like the stuff that we can do with the cars, we're talking about the stuff that Razor Studios and ultimately ISI and the R-Factor developers have done with the original platform that we're working with here. The way the cars behave, you have front and rear contact, and you expect in that situation that, potentially that we'd see the Lockie Lock car over the fence from spinning and flying and whatever. But whatever it is, the rears are locked down and it ends up being Tomo that got spun off of that.
Yeah, this is an unusual thing. Brendan Ross in the pits at lap 35. So that's actually quite a short stint.
It is. That puts him into a
this is
20...
this is borderline. This is borderline being able to get home from here on this. So he's already done the one stop.
35. He's right at the long end of the stint. If a safety car falls in, he will be in a good spot because he won't have to pit where the rest of the cars will. But it's a long drive from here.
Yeah, actually. Oh, that's actually a very short stop as well. So I'm wondering, did they not have enough fuel in?
I don't know. That's
that's a weird one because that's a really short stop.
That doesn't feel like long enough.
If I do the math,
he was last in.
I'll do the math now, Rody. Let me have a look at this.
Yeah.
Just looking at the lap times, right? So the last time they came in for a stop, the proper stop was on lap 18, and the lap time count there was a 2:09. That was the full delta in and out, and he's just stopped now on lap 35. He actually had a track cut in that last sector as well, or the last lap 2, somewhere in sector 2. So we didn't actually get a time for Brendan Ross on lap number 35. But that looked like a very short stop.
Yeah, that's for me, for a car that in my mind is supposed to be going for another 35 laps, that felt like too short of a stop. And the argument in my head was, maybe, picked up the tyres in the first stop and now got the fuel in the second stop. But I think, like, the first stop was, lap 25, so he's going to do 45 laps instead of, even earlier. So he's going to do, 47 laps on a set of tyres. And they're going to feel very, very, very ordinary after 47 laps.
Yeah, they're going to feel really ordinary. Like, if I'm doing the math now, like if I did this again, they're stopping 3 times, right? So you've got,
Yeah.
they've stopped at lap 18, you know, they've stopped at lap 35, which is close enough to lap 36, so kind of double the distance that they did on the previous stop. So 18 to 36, you'd be expecting them now in around the early 50s.
Yeah, they're almost split this into quarters rather than a third. Or at least the way it's looking. So, I don't know. That one's a really peculiar one. I suppose, I don't know whether that might have... I feel like it's either a really out-of-the-box strategy call or it's something where their hand was forced. And it's something that we might see that, if a safety car were to fall, it's going to swing it back in their favour. But I will say on the safety car front, I was coming to this thinking, especially based off of how Dev Series was doing. Dev Series wasn't safety car prone, but we did have a few. Pretty clean running so far. There's been definitely a few opportunities for it with the pitting that has taken place and some of the lap traffic and with some of the spins we've seen, but we're just not doing quite enough to trigger the safety car as of yet.
No, you're absolutely right. It's very, very clean running. I think, yeah, we did have a little bit of safety car activity in the Dev Series race, but it seems like eternity ago now, doesn't it?
It does. Like I was trying to think in my head of, how long is this tire going to last? And I realised it's been probably a month since the Dev Series guys ran around here, just by virtue of how everything's played out. But like the only safety car I think that we had was race 3, and it was a peculiar one because it was one of the few times in ASR history that a safety car period has never actually seen the field behind the safety car.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think I say a few. I think ever. Typically because the safety car was called as the leaders passed the timing line, so the safety car couldn't catch the leaders, and so the rest of the field had to process through the safety car to catch back up to the safety car. It was only like a 2 or 3 lap safety car, so by the time I think essentially everybody had a running start at the restart, and technically the leader was like 20 seconds behind where they were supposed to be.
Yeah,
one of the really peculiar ones.
We actually did go back and have a look at. I was actually about to say Lewis Weddings just had a major shortcut of the chicane there because he's actually just been through the lane as well, and in the last couple of laps. So that's why he's now 10th and a lap down. I think Luke Speck's the same, Lockman's the same. Callahan, I'm pretty sure, was a lap down before the safety car. Sorry, before the second round of pit stops had even started. There has to be something we're missing then. It's a case of the old one of these things is not like the other.
Like, well, with Ross in, that could be a mistake, sure. With Lewis in, perhaps that's something the team's done as a whole.
Weddings was a full stop, like his was a 2 minute 13 through, like full lap in the lane and then back out again. So I think Wedding's stop is actually like a proper. Oh, yeah, actually,
Wedding, probably set up for a stop. Okay, in that case, then we probably So we okay. I'll re-rack what I was going to say then. Yeah, I think then in that case, Wedding is probably set up to go to the be interesting. Because we didn't actually set rules and because we didn't mandate it'd be tricky. It could be in a position where just as the race has gone, given that we didn't actually say you had to run, we said if a co-driver is going to run, they have to run an appreciable number of laps. That said, everybody else is running a solo race, and to be fair, the way things are played out, Lewis might be enjoying himself, John might, I don't know, bedtime or something, I don't know. The way things are sitting, unless this is a 3-stop race, I don't think we're seeing John McDonald in this race.
Yeah,
because at this stage, I think Lewis is set off of my head math that he can do 30 laps from here.
And they are geographically separated too, so it's not like the Kiwis in the day where they could just jump into each other's seat in the middle of a pit stop and then just put the belts on and off they go, sharing the city. They're physically in 2 different states. So.
And that's the thing is from where they were, like they were running out the back of the top 10, they wouldn't have minded perhaps much, but Lewis, above all else, and part of the reason why Lewis ended up bringing Luke Rosero into the car mid-season, he's at the end of the day he's competitive, not only for himself but for his team, and he's had a few as he might term it, false starts with teams over the years. It's not like he's had bad drivers, he just hasn't quite found that secret sauce that he at least he feels he might have found now with Pixel. And yeah, like if he feels like he's actually genuinely in a shot for this, he might actually go for the best strategy call. And the best strategy call is to say, I respect, I'm more than happy that you stayed up and you came to this race, John, but if you jump in this car, not only you jump in this car, whatever it does to lap time, but the raw fact of it is we put you in the car, we're losing 20 seconds of every car around us, just by virtue of the swap. And that perhaps could be what's playing into the mindset, and that could be perhaps the reason why if it is the last time we saw Lewis Wedding in the pits, why it was the last time we saw the the 286 in the pits.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of just doing the math in my head, and I'm looking at a few things as well, because I've actually got another bit of math that I'm using at the same time, which is the server console, which tells me that there's 17 people in the server, which means there's 14 drivers, plus you, plus me, plus the other broadcasters there as well. So unless Nathan Higginson has left and gone home for the night, John McDonald's not in the server. So that's the other piece of the puzzle that I'm looking at right now as well.
That's a thing I can answer that, because Higginson is still hasn't been the pop-up in the server chat to say Higginson's left the garage, or Higginson's left the game. His car is still in the garage, and there is only R3 in the spectator list. So as things sit currently, McDonald isn't in the server. That said, still 37 laps. We could still see him. And if this is somehow turned into a 3-stop race for Pixel, then we might still see him. I don't know. Perhaps the way things ebb and flow, the strategy might go back out of the window for the 286, and then it becomes a situation of, oh well, look, you have hung around, John, and look, we did say we'd put you in the car, and you did want to drive a little bit of this, so we'll give you the last 10-15 laps or so.
Yeah. Here we go, next sequence of stops are happening. So Noah Tara in the pits for his second stop. So this is lap 43 for him. So he stopped around the early 20s, the early 40s here. So, and Callahan in as well in the CRE 915. So they can get home from here. Like if they could do a long stint and get home from here if they wanted to. The question is, will they? That's the real thing we need to sort of worry about at the moment, is will they be able to get home from here? We know that Devonish and this man on screen, Tim Redmond, they're definitely able to eke out the fuel mileage, so we're expecting just one more stop from them. They got well into the mid-20s before they came in for service. I think Devonish was at lap 25, I think Redmond was maybe a lap or two later. So that's going to be interesting how that pans out. So if Devonish gets another 25 laps, gets to say lap, sort of lap 50-ish, the early 50s. Redmond gets sort of well into the mid 50s. He'll have some fresher tyres, and he'll have a lighter car. Won't have to put as much fuel in, so there'll be a shorter stop there as well. He could sort of maybe sneak back into the game here, but needs a little bit of fortune to go his way, I think, in the next few, handful of laps, just to see where that pans out, because his outlap wasn't 100% great out of the first sequence of stops. He actually lost quite a substantial amount of time.
Yeah, and that's half the play is how you take the stops, but it's very much getting back into the train of thinking, and getting crucially, the other point I was actually coming on to was getting back into the train where you want to sit, because that's been it's a light gamble, but with a short track, even with currently 13 cars on track, there's still very much potential that you end up either out in traffic or you end up out behind a car that you're going to need to then pass very quickly, which sort of ruins your ability to generate your own speed and get back up to speed again. And it very much is probably part of the reason also into Devonish versus Redmond. I don't actually recall specifically where they dropped out in the rest of the train. They were at the lead, but they did come in around lap traffic. They could definitely come out around some lap traffic, some back markers. That very much influenced as well. Like I think just in the last lap or two that I was watching them, Devonish was sort of pulling out front relative to Tim, who I think had just processed through the likes of Luke Speck and who was it, Darren Lognan, who were both then since one of the pits. Yeah. But yeah, so there's that sort of game as well. The lap traffic definitely comes into it as well.
Yeah, so now there's an interesting situation developing here, because Brennan Ross has been in sort of a handful of laps ago. Noah Tara's literally just been in the pit, so he's about his second flying lap on fresh rubber, and well, there's the answer there, isn't it? Ross was quite deep. Now, just sort of wondering there, I thought for a moment that Noah maybe made some contact with Ross, but clearly didn't, because he was well wide at 6. I think he was just giving a bit of room for Ross to get back onto the circuit, just in case he was in the blind spot, being on the left-hand side of the car, coming up to the left-hand at 6 and not quite knowing where he was. But that's a very, very clear illustration there, not just of driver and car performance, but also just how beneficial that newer tyre is in the early going after you come out of the pits. Once you get it up to temperature, once you're in the zone, you've got to use it to your advantage when you've got it.
Absolutely, and we saw this from, I think, Noah coming out of the earlier stops as well. Just like we caught him, I think, trying to get past Foley at points as well, just on that fresher tyre. So yeah, and Ranches into the game, getting yourself set up with that fresh tyre And I think most guys, there's a gamble of the time gain over loss, but I think around this track, especially when you get to the back end of a second stint on these hard tyres, you're probably going to want to have picked up tyres because the tyre wear, especially on the left-hand side of the car, is quite heavy around here.
Certainly is, yeah, very much a left-hand dependent circuit. It's predominantly right-hand turning, so the left-hand side does cop pounding. Especially you look at the high-speed approach to turn number 1, the last couple of corners, the last proper corner on the circuit as well, puts quite a loading through the car. Turn 4, you're sort of pushing the car through there on power. You turn into turn number 5 at speed as well, so you're asking quite a lot. The hairpin doesn't put too much load on the car, but all those other corners I just mentioned, they're putting quite a substantial load through the tyres. So right here, Peter Thrower, the left-hand side tyres are loaded up. You get to here, transfers over, not too much weight going through here. This is the one where you're starting to lean on because you want to pick up the throttle as early as you can, so rear left gets a bit of torching. And up the back straight, it's not any loading on the tyres whatsoever, it's all being driven through the rears. But then this braking zone here, you ask a fair bit through here because you take a lot of curve. It's a medium speed corner, but you do take a lot of curve through there. This part of the track doesn't sort of chew through either side of the tyre too much. It's fairly gentle. This is the slowest corner on the circuit here in turn number 8. Not a lot of load going through the left-hand side tyres there either. But then you get to the final corner, and again, you're taking it sort of medium to high speed, and you're really pushing it through. In Thrower's case, he's going to discard that rubber because he's now in the pits for the second time at the end of lap 48. So that releases, that was Brett Foley, I think. Yes, it was.
Yes, it was, yep.
Through into third place. So himself, Tim Redmond and Will Devenish yet to stop. Just keep an eye on Thrower. He actually made some remarkable progress in that last stint. So after Wedding had been up as high as second place for a little while, came in and had his stop. This will now give us an indication where Thrower comes out in all of that, because Wedding's coming through the last couple of corners now. Thrower's actually just arriving in the pit boom, so
yeah,
that's going to push him down.
Wedding's going to jump him. I think Speck will jump him, and I think Lognan will probably jump him as well.
Yeah, so Speck's coming through the final corner now, so to Lognan, yeah, you're absolutely right. So it was a good clean run for Peter Thrower though, so he kept himself out of trouble, was running comfortably in the upper echelons of the top 10 for most of that stint after all these drivers had come in. Now the bit that's going to be interesting is where do these two have to stop again, and where Lewis Wedding has to hand over as well, because I'm pretty sure Thrower could comfortably make it to the end from here. There's only 22 laps left on the board.
Yeah, I'd say at this point, the rower's probably set up for the end of the race. Yeah, you're right, only 22 laps left to play, which is 100% in the window for these tyres.
Race leaders in, so Devenish getting in at the end of lap 50 for him, so this is bang on the money that I was talking about. I thought he was going to possibly split this race up into thirds, and it looks like he's done almost that. So he pitted at lap, what was that? He pitted at lap number at 25. He's pitting again at 50. And this will see him through to the end of the race.
Yeah, the hard one to gamble from here, and he'll have a better picture of this than I will looking on the spectator cameras, but I'm not quite 100% sure where he's going to drop out, and that's really going to be the crucial bit as to where he drops out relative to Red. Red was only 8 seconds behind him, so the difference might be that Will drops out in a pack or just in front of a pack or just behind a pack, whereas Tim might drop out clear of that pack. That could make the difference. But it's hard to pick up just by virtue of the way this race is run on, being a green race right through. Is we've seen a lot of cars drop laps, partially through just pit stops. A few guys that are functionally a bit off on pace or from happenings in the race. Locke's a bit down the back. Brapp is down there as well, and Callahan's currently 2 laps down on the lead. He was down on Devenish, who's just got past on the way through. Devenish going to drop out just ahead of Foley, actually.
Foley's in the lane, actually.
Oh, Foley's, okay, so he's got lucky there then.
Yeah, and race leader Redmond is now in as well, so that cleanses all that field. Now, Igmanis, again, was one of the drivers in the last sort of stint that he went a little bit longer than everybody else, and he's gone around again. He's actually come out behind his teammate Igmanis is in third, Devenish is in second because Redmond's currently in the lane. Now, the important piece here for Igmanis is he still has to stop for a second time. So where's he going to fall out in all of this? He's going to fall out probably around about 6th or 7th, I think. I think he's going to be behind Foley for sure. be questioned whether or not he's behind Ross, but although they've just switched around on the timing monitor, and I think that's because it looks like Ross is, Ross has actually gone through, and Foley is exiting the pit lane at the moment. And here comes Igmanis, so that means everybody has done at least 2 stops now, or will have completed 2 stops by the time Igmanis finishes his.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what the gap plays out to now. I think once it gets running, it might swing ever so slightly Tim's way. Interesting how long it takes him to get up to speed, but I think we just heard wheel buzz through. Okay, no, actually, the timing does a weird thing. I think it's where the timing mark is relative to the pit lane, so he has actually worked out to be at 9 seconds. So made a small time gain through the pits, but not a great amount. But he's got. It's
a bit more than that, because the timing boom comes up now on the exit of turn number 4. It's a bit further down now than it was in real life. It's actually 10.7 seconds now. So that's probably a more realistic gap than what it was crossing the pit exit, because you're getting up to speed and you're not really properly getting a true read on how far apart the cars actually are.
Yeah, so the important thing is they've got clean air between them, and I think Devonish has this thing sit right now. He's got a good bunch of clean air in front of him as well, so they can both sort of run at the pace they want to run at. There's a question of I think for Tim right now is like Tim can do about equal pace to Will, but maybe not that much quicker. He probably needs a little bit of external influence in some factor. But the other thing for Tim will be if he is still having a single foot, this where the fatigue starts to come in.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's something we haven't sort of spoken too much about. We don't particularly want to speak too much about it nowadays. There's Wedding leaving the lane, actually. Noah Tara in 3rd place. Where did Wedding fall out on the list? So he's actually he will have stopped for the final time now, Lewis Wedding. So he's now down in 9th place overall. Now, importantly, he is still in the car. So I am looking at the thing, and I don't believe we may see John McDonald tonight. So originally we thought that this might have been a case for Lewis Wedding of they were going to actually split that driving up, but it doesn't look like that has come to fruition there, and he's gone and continued on. And you can see here he's actually just popped something into the chat anyway, so there we go. So he's there you go. We'll give him a special salute later on for his comment in the chat, as Devonish sets the new fastest lap of the race into the 2s.
We will, yeah. And first, I think that is well, it's not the first lap of the night, clearly, because qualifying happened. But yeah, first race lap into the 2s. So very much going comfortable there as he starts to pull away. I think, as things see, he's still got a pretty empty track. Yeah, he's got I think he's got a couple of points in front of him where there is no one to worry about. Actually, no, next car in front. Actually, there's 2 cars in front. It's both team cars, at least. It's Darryl Callahan, and I think that'll be Lockie Lock, I think, just further up the road as well.
Okay, going to shake the order up here. Brendan Ross is in for his final stop at lap 53. So this will be the second of the Pixel cars that is able to get home from here. Foley having stopped at around lap 50 should be good to go. Brendan Ross will be good to go. I think everybody on track right now should be good to go. Should be good to make it all the way home from here. Don't think there's anybody else, unless there's someone down the field that hasn't, out of our sight, that hasn't stopped for the 2nd time, potentially for the 3rd time. Let's go sailing through. Wedding's going to go sailing through into 8th place.
The interesting play with this is I would like to sit down. Obviously, we'll talk to the podium sitters after this race, and there's customary for a long race, that is how we'll sit things. But hopefully they're falling to the podium and I can do it anyway. But I would like to have a chat to Wedding or Ross to figure out why there was this extra 4th stop somewhere in there for them compared to the 4th stint. The extra 3rd stop for them compared to the other cars, because I'm not sure. Maybe there was some eventuality they're playing for. Maybe something wouldn't go their way. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's just very odd to me that they'd pull in an extra stop for, at least as things sit right now, when there's still 15 laps to go. As things sit right now, no real reason.
Yeah, well, at the moment it's going to swing their way a little bit because Locke's in the lane, so they'll get a spot there. Brap is now in the lane as well in 45, so they won't get a spot there because he was down in 13th place anyway. So a couple of these spots that they have that they've lost through the stop sequence, they are going to cop a little bit of an advantage from those. They are going to get those back. They won't have to stop again, so they've got the pace. They should hold those positions. The real question is, there's a big slide for Noah Tara in the background there behind Luke Speck. He had all 4 wheels in the grass and he had a fistful of opposite lock along with it. It's going to be interesting to see where they, how bad they actually spit out here, because Ross was 11th after his stop. Now Locke is 11th after his stop, so that's pushed Ross back up to 10th. I'm not sure if Darren Loughlin's got to stop again, Rhodey. He's actually not that far ahead of Brendan Ross on the track. So even over the course of the next 15 laps, Ross will catch him.
I think he and Speck have been racing pretty tight together. So I haven't kept track of Speck, but I think Speck's been in for his last stop. So Speck has Lognan will have been as well, because they've been pretty much tied together for the
shortcut of the chicane as well. There was a shortcut of the chicane there as well for one of the
cars. Ross engine.
Oh, it's gone.
I think.
Is that? Yes, it is. Something's gone wrong for Brendan Ross. That could be a real game changer in all of this. As we flip over to our Outlaw Broadcasting replay, have a listen here. What's he done?
Yeah.
There we go. Blown engine for Brendan Ross. Wowee.
Oof. Well, yeah, like individually he wasn't seeing the world on fire as things sit pace-wise, and then perhaps that extra stop played into it, but. Yeah, that's still going to hurt with only 14 cars starting this race. The potential for points, I was not 100% sure what points will be, but with a 200-kilometre race, there will be a lot of points on offer. John Rossi with, I imagine, a very, very facetious yay. And John confirming that the real motor blew up, so rather than, I'm guessing, the starter motor that we saw in Van Giers 10 years ago.
Or a fake motor.
Or a fake motor, but that's the same. We've seen a few blown engines this year, so whoever does the engine building for the ASR Supercars Championship, I'm not sure if we actually have a spec or the way that KRE is currently doing Gen 3, but I imagine there'll be a few angry phone calls. I imagine whoever builds the engines won't be on a few Christmas cards lists this year. The amount of championship implications that engine failures have had at various points. Obviously, Sandown was a big one for CRE, and it's only one car at the moment, but still really not. It's really at a time that Pixel didn't need it at Pukekohe.
That's right. And on top of that, I think now, I think a few people will be crunching some numbers right now just to work out what the deficit's going to be after all of this, because you've got Devonish running in front. You've got Egmanis running 6th, and then this man on screen, Brent Foley, holding up the Pixel end at the moment, running in 4th. So there are a chunk of points that are going to go begging here in the penultimate round of the ASR Supercars Championship. So it's all going to come from a team's championship. I got a funny feeling it's going to all come down to what happens in Adelaide in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, I will say there's no guarantee, and actually Rossi's made a
very valid point.
He made a very valid point, and like you don't go out there trying to drop around, but I mean, look, this does become his drop round, so
it's the same situation that Will Devonish went through at Sandown. So now they've both dropped 0. So I mean, in terms of contributing towards the team's points, they've both dropped 0. Then you've got Igmanis, who I guess his Sandown counts as 0 as well. And then, well, the hard part of the equation for Pixel that we don't quite understand at the moment is from a drop round point of view. Lewis Wedding was in the car for the first several rounds. Then Luke Rosella has come along and picked up several rounds as well. They're both missing that one, so Brenton Foley's in the car. They get to Adelaide. Not sure if Rosella will be available or not. I believe he might be, because the date has been pushed back an extra week as a result of all the other changes. But the important bit there is, like, Rosella started the championship part way through the season, so he can't effectively drop 0. And then Wedding, because he's switched out of the car, he can't drop 0 towards the team's points either. They can drop 0 to they effectively don't have a drop round because of how that has sort of unfolded. So we're going to need to do a little bit more figuring out to make sure we've got that all on point before next round.
yeah, I think the way it's going to fall out is that the team's championship is related to the cars, not the driver. And so far this season, the 88 has had a driver. 88? I think 88 is. Yeah, 88.
88.
Yeah, 88. The 88's had a driver. The 88 has raced it every round, so it will be the worst round for the 88, which I imagine, just going from my head, will be one of Wedding's rounds. Will be the drop. So it'll be 100, maybe 200, 100 and something points probably. This is very, 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 very rough head math, having looked at the point sheet like a couple of months ago. But that's probably where it's going to fit for that team's points.
Before you go too far, ready, there was Luke Speck was just off the road at the hairpin. So actually that's another pass for Darren Lockman. And it looks like he might have done this one on his own, I believe. Yeah, he was running solo. Narrowed up the inside to the hairpin, and yeah, actually just gassed it up. So kept it off the fence. Importantly, that was really good.
Yeah. So Rossi made the point, and you're correct, Rossi. For in terms of the drivers' standings, Luke has now had his drop round because he's not here tonight.
If he continues
so
on,
that's
for the rest
covered.
of if he continues on for the rest of the season, which is only one round left to go, then yes, that would effectively be a drop round towards his championship. But in terms of the car, that's the bit that we need to figure out, because if the car's had somebody in it, it becomes, you're right, the worst drop round for the car. We just don't know off the top of our heads what that's going to be. But yeah, all that's going to work out over the course of the next little bit.
Yeah. The important bit for now is, we'll work out in days to come. Obviously, we'll factor in the drop rounds as well. We'll get a clearer picture of where the championship standings are. But it's very much crept up on us as things have been going. But we're entering the last 9 laps of the Pukekohe 200.
We are very much closing in on the last handful of laps, inside the last 8 laps, so to speak. So the race leader is about to complete his 62nd lap. He's just motored away from the field over the course of the race so far. So after the first sequence of stops, that's when the gap really opened up. It was about a second and a half before the stops, and after the first stop, it really sort of blew out. And this is something that we hadn't seen for a lot of the year. Last year especially, it was quite tight. Oh, there's Braps in the fence. Sorry, Rhodey. There's looks like there's a DNF coming the way of the number 45. Yep, there he is, stuck on the inside of the fence, and that
and he's got a wheel missing as well. So yeah, that will be a DNF. Yeah,
that will be a DNF for him. So has he done what Lewis Wedding managed to do in the shootout, only a little bit worse? It's okay through there, and pitched the inside front, and car travelling too quick, and yep, straight to the scene of the accident.
Yeah, just a bit too much speed carried there, and just didn't quite arrest it the way he wanted to. And yeah, he would have gone away with that pretty normally, but the collision box around the front of the Supercars tend to be very, very tender. And either you knock an engine out, or in Brap's case, or if he didn't take an engine, but the visual one is he's taken out the tyre, and they won't rebuild your wheel hub for you in a pit stop. So unfortunately, Brap's out, which will well, actually, I think he was last running time, but if it wasn't, it's promoted Darryl Callahan up a spot.
Yes, it has too. And the important bit for Brap there as well is that means no championship points either, because he might have gotten close to the 80% minimum race distance, but unfortunately you do need to be running at the checkered flag to acquire your points, and
absolutely.
Tim Redmond, second place on the road, distant second place, but still a good round for Beyond Racing. They currently occupy, second and fifth. So for them, that's going to keep them interested in the battle with Amped Up Racing by CRE. Noah Tara in third, and Lockie Lockdown in 10th. That will be a net gain for the Beyond Mustangs heading into the final round, so that will keep that points battle for the teams there very, very interesting. In the same way that the top 2 will be very, very interesting heading into the final round. So there's going to be a lot of championship situations heading into Adelaide in 2 weeks' time that we will be working through.
We have got actually a little bit of a late race battle forming up here now, with Lewis Wedding trying to go for a move here on Koenigsegg Martin. So I think Thomas has tried given that to him, which perhaps the smart move. Lewis is not fighting, obviously not fighting directly in the team's championship, nor is he fighting really in the drivers' championship, having missed a few rounds. But pretty easy move ultimately there for Wedding. He just sort of set the car from the inside, and Tomo did the smart thing, I suppose, in the end, and just let him through.
Yeah, here it is again. catch it real life, real time. And yeah, I think you're right. So Wedding just had a much better exit off the final corner, good slipstream, good slingshot into the first chicane, between the first, second, and corners, and yeah, Turbo didn't bother to argue the point. It's all about the team's points. He knows at the moment that it's a situation where the team's championship is very much in theirs to gain at the moment, and with one of the Pixel cars out of commission, every point counts. Doesn't matter if you're 5th place, sorry, 6th place or 7th place in it all. It's only a small points that have been lost, but it's more about bringing the car home, putting the points in the bank, and then just going to Adelaide and worrying about it then.
Actually, the other thing as well that I've just realised as a result of Ross's DNF is that I think as of the, assuming that nothing happens to to Devonish in the next 4 laps, I think this would make him...
this will make him the champion.
This will make him the champion with a round left to go.
Yes. As I said, every year for the last 5 years, so 2018 all the way through to 2022, the last 5 champions, all those championships were decided in the final round of the Supercars Championship. So it went right down to the final round in one way or another, whether it was a single round format or a 2-race format, or whatever the situation was. It always took until the final round to decide the eventual champion, because the championship was that close. This will be the first time in ASR history that a Supercars Championship has been decided with a round to spare, if nothing happens. Yes.
Yeah, and that speaks partially to well, I think mostly just to the strength that Devonish has had. He spent quite a few years playing second fiddle to the likes of 2018. He wasn't really much in the picture there with the likes of Hobson, of Nolan, of some of the iRacers who had come and running through in 2018. 2019, he was actually playing third fiddle. He was in the fight early, but in the end, Phil Boak and Brenton Foley were the two that ran for the title. 2020, his fight was with Kurt Stenberg, and wasn't quite able to take it to Kurt, but kept a fair fight, even with some of the influence that Kurt tried to have played upon the championship. 2021 was his fight with Luke Rosella, and well, we've known Rosella's pace since he's come back this year. He's just very much a cut above. And then 2022, Kurt Stenberg came back to win his second title, and again, just second fiddle the entire way through. So he's been working on it for the past, especially since 2020. That was, he took the opportunity over the lockdowns to really sort of go back to basics with his sim racing and put in as much time as he could. He's had to wean off a little bit as life has returned, but he's still putting in a lot of work, not only for himself, keep in mind, he is putting a lot of work in for the CRO team as a whole, through the guys that have officially got running in their team and through the guys they're supporting through the Dev Series. Will's out there running nights for the Dev Series guys in the week leading up to the rounds. Anybody will turn up and he'll offer setup advice and driving tips and the like. So it's by all means, it's not just to get himself up there. He's very much doing it and looking after the community in the process. But there is very much a personal goal to be gained from that, a personal gain to be made from all that. And this is what he's been striving for ever since 2020.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the bit, and I've said this a few times, and you just touched on it there, Rody, the bit that I guess a lot of people don't realise was lost on everything is behind the scenes. Yes, he might practice, most nights of the week. Yes, he's in there with his good mate Cam Rutledge and all the CRE guys that come in on a regular basis. That's probably the first mistake I think I've seen him make most of the night there, just at turn number 5. But he's in there, he's offering driving tips. He genuinely wants other drivers in the series to get better. The ones that are in Supercars and have been there for a while, they all want to improve, and they're happy to listen to what he has to say and take some of that advice on board. Even at one stage, I think Melody Smith, who's in Super 3, after a few lead rounds, was actually asked to jump into a session with Will and just listen to what he had to tell her, and she found a little bit of time, which was really pleasing to see. So it's not just all about him, it's been about the community. Right, he's played second fiddle for the last couple of seasons. 2020, Kurt Stenberg ran second. ran second to Luke Rosella in 21, and then he was sort of technically, I guess, third string in 2022, because for the most of it, it was actually Stenberg and Rosella going toe-to-toe, and it was still a very, very fair fight right up until the last minute. But closing corners of Pukekohe 200 for Will Devonish. He's not quite going to get to the back of Pete Thrower to put him a lap down. There's actually a little battle unfolding there between himself and Brenton Foley. We're going to keep an eye on that one. That's for 4th place at the moment. But the top 3 are settled. And for this man, finally, after 5 years, 6 years almost now of being in the ASR Supercars series in the top flight, he finally gets to wear the championship crown, and with a round to spare. Congratulations to Will Devonish.
Yeah, so first place in the end there. Very comfortable run in the end over Tim Redmond. He's making it over the line for second. Very much Tim, they're still, I haven't kept the stats for a year now, but I can tell you without needing to look at them that Tim still is the most podium driver to not pick up a win yet. He came close at Watkins and he's come close a few times. Very much still one round left to go, and with championship not to worry about.
What's Noatara done? He's gone off the road at the final at the hairpin there. Thankfully, he's got enough margin over Brenton Foley and Peter Thrower to hang on to third, but that's a little bit of a scary moment for Noatara. Lucky to keep it out of the fence. So Tara will be home for third. I think that's the first time in a long time we've actually had 3 Mustangs occupy the top 3 spots on the podium. So it is a Ford lockout here at the Pukekohe 200 on top on the rostrum. Foley's going to outlast Peter Thrower, who's put in a sensational drive this round. 2-stop strategy for Peter Thrower, and for I think was it a 3-stop for Brenton Foley or a 2-stop for Brenton Foley?
I think Foley was the only one of the 3 pistol cars not to adopt what I see.
Oh, that's right, with the 2-stop.
I think he was a 2-stop. So yeah, the 2-stop did work out in the end. And as I said, I'll be interested to chat and see what the 3-stop was playing towards. But no, really good run there for Foley, but also, as mentioned in the chat, as Walshy mentioned earlier, really good run for Pete. Very much sort of been flying around the top 10 this season, and slimmer grid tonight, but he was keeping with Foley, and Foley's previous season champion. Foley's actually come alive in the Enduro Cup, so to be keeping up with him is quite good running. Curtis Sigmanis comes home the first of the cars, a lap down in 6th. Still a good run for Terman. Actually had a bit of a challenge on at the back end there with Lewis Wedding, who ended up coming home in 7th. So some good points for the Fuchs HSB dealer team there, in absence of any other points to come in there. But it was a really good run. Darren Lognan home in 8th with some points for skill issue. Bit of an interesting one because technically the Enduro Cup is wrapped up, so the points will go somewhere for the team.
Points will only go to the driver. That's
the points. Yeah, the points will only go to the driver with this only being an Enduro Cup team, but I don't know, possibilities for next year. But
we'll work through those permutations after the round. But yes, we do need to.
Yeah, really good run for Lognan there, and as I said, definitely in the window for next year. A few more wildcard drives might come his way. Luke Speck home in 9th, bit of a quiet run there for Specky, but a good run in the end, not far off the back of Lognan. He basically played for the leader the entire race. So a good run there for Specky. He's only really done Enduro Cup drivers and a couple of fill-ins here and there. I know he's in demand with both SES and PBF for next year in Supercar, in Super 2. It's interesting to see where that falls for him. And Lockie Lock home in 10th. Very much a night that started with promise. Starting the top 10 shootout last after qualifying on provisional pole, but shootout didn't quite go his way, and then a couple of mistakes early on just knocked him down towards the back of the train. In the end, 10th. It's points, but not the sort of points he was aiming for. And in the end, Darryl Callahan has finished 3 laps down, but importantly has finished, and he's outlasted Brapp, Brennan Ross, and Nathan Higginson to come home in 11th.
That's it, and he got points. That's the important thing.
Exactly.
As well. And the burnout parades are happening, so you got Peter Thrower on the main circuit, and then you've actually got Brenton Foley just leaving, doing his best Shane Van Gisbergen impression down pit lane at the moment. So they're all done. So only the 3 non-finishers, Brapp, who ended up in the fence with about 6 or 7 laps to go, Brennan Ross with the blown engine, and Nathan Higginson fairly early on after a fairly, I guess to say, temperamental drive, I think probably call that for Nathan Higginson. It's one of those, it hasn't been his year, I think. He would very much turn around and expect to to go back into the development series if he could. But unfortunately, I think for him, it's one of those. It's been one of those things, hasn't it? We've looked at who wants to go up, who wants to go down, and things like that. But the hard part is you send some people back from one series to another series, and they end up effectively dominating. That's the hard part to muster.
Yeah, the concern is, and it's matching concerns that they've had in real life. If you win an F2 championship, you can't ever come back to F2. And I suppose the more famous one, and the one that's probably a bit closer to home, is the concept of bushwhacking, which not bushwhacking is in BUSH, bushwhacking is in BUSCH, in reference to, I think it was Kurt Busch,
Kurt Busch.
who came back. Well, obviously he's still being a full-time NASCAR Cup Series driver, came back and run in the Xfinity Series and a couple of championships that way as well, which he was allowed to do. But there was definitely a bit of a he started a tidal wave of actually quite a few drivers coming back and trying to get some easy pickings in the well, effectively for us is the Dev Series points tally. And so there is, I think, since been either rules or some motions to try and prevent that, to try and give the Xfinity Series a chance to actually show the next generation of talent rather than just the guys that have the money to do both out of the current national or Cup Series pool. So similar things to think about here.
Yes, some similar things to think about here. Just having a look around, I'm not sure if Noah has managed to make it up here. I'm looking in the Discord, and I think he may have vanished and gone to bed. I'm not quite sure if that's accurate or not, but I can't see him in the CRE chat, so I think Will might be looking frantically for him at the moment. But for the moment, Rhodey, we'll let that one sit for the moment, as it's time for our Beyond Electrical round review. Of course, thanks to Beyond Electrical, their home race this week. And, well, we haven't got Noah Turra, so we might start with our second place getter for tonight first in Tim Redmond.
Yeah, so actually, I'll say he's just appeared, so we'll actually bring Noah up.
Start with Noah then.
Hang on, we both grabbed him at the same time there.
I didn't grab him.
Oh, someone else grabbed him. Anyway, we've got him now. So we'll start with you then, Noah. Great run in the end. Pretty good run in qualifying. I suppose we'll start there. How did things go for you? Sort of the planning coming out of sort of coming into the night, thinking, oh, you're maybe going to do, what was it about? Can be about 150 odd to 200 Ks by yourself as part of a co-driver event, to then very much have to pivot and start to look at a single driver run.
Yeah, it wasn't, the race mindset wasn't too much different, because I feel like it would have worked out to some quite similar in terms of the stints anyway. And for qualifying, I thought I was going to qualify anyway, so that's what I was kind of focusing on. But yeah, I just didn't really have that much pace around here. So I kind of just went in, see what would happen, and there was even like less pressure once we turned into just like a single driver race, because I don't need to worry about like messing up Lockie's night. So yeah, just went out and had a crack, and ended up being best of the rest.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't get a chance to, I think, talk to you after to Bathurst and your thoughts on Pookie, but obviously back to the Kiwi track, but also it's a different track this year. It's perceptionally, I think, feels a little bit wider, but it's also perhaps a bit of a smoother track. Did it influence your thinking a little bit, or influence where you sat coming out of last year's track and then jumping into the slightly different layout we got this year?
I think no, it didn't really affect the driving that much. I just kind of took like 10 or 15 laps to kind of rewire my brain for it. I feel like I was quicker on the last track, but that was probably down to me being in the Dev series at the time, so I didn't have anything to compare to. But yeah, no, I didn't really have any troubles acclimatizing to the new track. It was just like, a track I already knew. I just had to redo the brake markers and the turning points, and then it was fine after that.
All good. And yeah, good run for you in the end to take home third. Fairly comfortable run in the end. You had a bit of a gap to the leaders, and a good gap behind to Foley and to Pete Thrower. Coming into Adelaide, obviously your home race for the last race of the season. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, keen. Like I'm pretty. I feel like I'm pretty decent at Adelaide, and I enjoyed driving the track. Nice tight street circuit. So yeah, keen to get on with it. Like it'll be good fun, I reckon.
All good. Well, great work on your podium tonight, Noah, and I think that'll set you up quite nicely as we get into the back end of the season. But we will catch you in, I think it'll be 2 weeks' time for the last round at
Yep.
Adelaide.
Yep. Thanks, Rudy.
Alrighty, swing over now to Tim Redmond, who we did plan to talk to earlier. Timmy, another second for you on the board. I know you keep going for those wins, and it would have been really nice to set one up at the home race, but still second. It's a pretty well fought race.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Look, I think the pace just wasn't quite there tonight. We were just behind Will pretty much all evening. So that kind of sums up my season, really. Second place is the best I've got so far. So still hunting that win, and it'll come eventually. I just gotta keep putting the time in, and yeah, still enjoying it, still thoroughly enjoying what we have, and obviously bonus tonight having my own home track.
Absolutely. Well, we're talking about second, and there will have to be some math going in as things sit with where the drop round plays out. Actually, I say that there won't. As things sit right now, as I'm looking at my other screen, as Brendan Ross is in there updating the points table, you, as a result of Rossi's DNF, currently sit second with a little bit of a margin to work with. So perhaps not the result you thought you'd have coming into tonight, but still not a chance for the obviously not a chance now for the win this year, but starting to think about next year already.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to next year. I unfortunately won't make the Adelaide round this time around, so the points are probably going to end up as they are. So yeah, I mean, like I said, thoroughly enjoyed the year. It's been a good one. Hopefully, I'll finish up still up towards the pointy end in terms of points for this one. And going into next year, just really thinking about potential changes. Yeah, we all know circuits change, and we might get some lucky car changes, but we'll see what happens. I think over the break.
Absolutely. Well, great work tonight, Tim. Good to see another podium on the board, and we still all long for that win one day, and you will get there, but unfortunately not quite tonight. But still a good run, and we will catch you in 2 weeks' time. Actually, no, we won't catch you in 2 weeks' time, Adelaide. So we will catch you at some point, probably before the end of the year. But if not, we will be seeing you hopefully on the grid in some form in 2024.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys.
And finally, the man who's been trying, arguably since he started in 2018, but really the fire kicked on in 2020 and hasn't really let off since. Will Devonish, it's taken you a few stabs, but you finally got your first ASR Supercar Drivers' Championship.
Thanks, Roddy. Yeah, it's it hasn't sunk in really. It was just really enjoying tonight, but yeah, it's great to finally get it. Um, been second a number of times. Always been there every year, but yeah, finally getting it it's good to have.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of work throughout the year, but obviously the approach to the start of the season and getting yourself set up from there really helped. There was obviously a lot of work you put in for yourself over the last few seasons, but I imagine also you probably learnt a bit as you sort of worked with the guys from CRE, but also with the guys from Dev Series as you started to try and cultivate some pace across the field.
Yeah, I guess like we had the physics tweak this year, and I think I adapted to it pretty well at the start of the year, and uh, by the US round, everyone had sort of caught up, so it started being um, far more level playing field after that. But you're right, the start of the season couldn't have gone any better, and that really set us up for the rest of the season. Um, and yeah, it's a couple of hiccups in the last few rounds, but we've bounced back, and I think the whole team's bounced back, and we've done well. And full credit to the CRE guys. I'm really proud of everyone in the team this year. There's been some stellar performances. We've got 3 drivers that have gotten race wins, potentially on for the teams again, which we had written off. So yeah, proud of everyone in the team, and sort of proud of myself that we finally got here.
Yeah, well, we talk about teams, and obviously now with one round left to go, the championship is sewn up, so that's not really a worry, but teams championship is still on the line. Coming into Adelaide then, your thoughts, is it going to be a little bit more conservative, just make sure the points are on offer, or you're still going to go for that win?
To be honest, the last few rounds I was getting pretty gutted that we'd lost the teams. Weirdly enough, I found that more important getting than the drivers' championship, and realized the drivers' championship was round. We'd gotten that, but not the teams this year, and I was pretty gutted with that. So yeah, we'll be definitely wanting to just bag the points next round, and try and keep out of the walls.
All good. Well, great work tonight, Will, and obviously across the season. And we will catch you in a few weeks' time at Adelaide in your attempt to defend what will be, I think, your third sequential teams championship.
Yeah, something like that. Thank you.
And that has been our podium sitters.
Thanks very much, Rody, as always. And yes, I think you kind of summed it up very, very well there for Will. Been waiting for a while, been there or thereabouts. Had a good start to the season, but it got tighter and tighter as the season went on, and the stumbling blocks I think that have happened over the course of the latter half of the season. Sometimes you just need to ride the bad luck out. You need to take that as a not so much as a war wound or a feather in your cap. You need to just take that and reflect on it, and then put it in the back of your mind and forget about it, and then just get on with business. And it took a little bit of a couple of rounds to get through that phase for Will, but eventually it's paid off, and he's going to be rewarded with his first Supercars championship. And as we said, it's the first time in championship history that it has been decided before the final round. So he's got that with a round to spare. So a little slice of history to go along with it, as well as winning the 100th race this year. A couple of milestones. The 100th ASR race Will won. There's we've had plenty of milestones this year, but for Will, I think this one he'll take as the milestone that he's been working towards for some time. So there is only 2 more broadcasts from a Supercars and Development Series point of view left for the year. The next one is going to be over on the Loose Sim Network channel, and that's going to be the Development Series race from Adelaide, which takes place next Friday night, 1st of December, followed by the Supercars closing round on the Friday the 8th of December. So that's how it all pans out for the remainder of the season. And of course, there's a couple of GT3 rounds in there as well, but they're not broadcast. They're racing ones only. So the season is coming to a very, very quick conclusion here in ASR, and we're proud we've had you along for the ride. Still a couple of broadcasts to go, so please join us here in 2 weeks. Join the Loose Sim Network in a week's time, and we will see you on the next one. Till then, please drive safe, everyone, and bye for now.